know, and the stupid part is the freaking detectives, those Driscoll, all those idiots.
Again, math. But if you have 30 pills times 4, that's 120 pills.
That math's for me.
One of them is from, I guess, the movie Dumb and Dumber.
I'm sorry, who's they?
All right, I'll be more specific.
I was a...
Your Honor, just objection foundation. I think timing's important here. I think counsel's confused.
401, 403, and hearsay, Your Honor, and authenticity.
Do you actually have an authenticity objection?
Counsel's confused.
Jacked, Your Honor.
What's the basis of the objection?
It's trying to make impeachment sound improper, and it's totally not improper. It is.
Don't make speaking objections.
Counsel's confused.
Oh, look at this psycho. Like, here's a freaking sandwich I gave to you, and here's a love note on Valentine's Day. Like, what the fuck?
That math's for me.
Detective, let's get you sworn in. I do.
Would you have a seat?
One more time, sir. What is your name?
Detective Jeff O'Driscoll, O''DRISCOLL.
And what, sir, do you do for a living?
I'm a narcotics and major crimes detective for the Summit County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the sheriff's office?
10 years.
What did you do before becoming a detective?
I worked in the patrol division with the sheriff's office. I had a number of primary duties as well as lateral duties. I was mainly responsible for responding to calls for service. I also was a canine handler. I was a UAS pilot or drone pilot. I was a member of the SWAT team as well as a SWAT sniper and various other administrative duties.
When did you become a detective?
July of 2022.
And sir, what types of cases have you handled as a detective?
All types of cases, as far as property crimes, frauds, thefts, mail thefts, home burglaries, vehicle burglaries, and then persons crimes, everywhere from simple assault to sexual assault, shootings. I was also on part of an on-call rotation for any in progress or major incidents in the county, as well as all deaths in the county.
Are you currently the lead detective on this case?
Yes, I am.
When were you assigned as lead detective?
In March of 2023.
And did you take over from Detective Woody?
Yes, that's correct.
Was this your first death investigation as a detective?
No, as I said, I was on the on-call rotation for all deaths occurring in the county. And before that, I had investigated several as just a first responder in patrol as well.
Was this your first death investigation that became a full-blown homicide investigation?
Yes, it was.
Upon being assigned as lead investigator in this case, how did you approach your investigation?
I had limited information when I first came onto the case. I didn't know all the facts and details about the case, but I knew some of the information, particularly the results from the autopsy, as well as the results from the medical examiner's office. So I knew that Eric had died of a fentanyl intoxication and that there was fentanyl in both his blood and his gastric content. But as far as how I approached the investigation, I wanted to start fresh. I wanted to start as if it was the first day that it had occurred and the first time that I was seeing it. I tried to look at it with fresh eyes and try to get a fresh perspective. Having said that, and knowing what I knew from the autopsy results, it was apparent to me that there were 3 likely possibilities of how Eric died. The first being that he had an accidental overdose after taking a substance that may have contained fentanyl. The second being that he intentionally ingested orally a large amount of fentanyl to commit suicide. And third, that somebody else administered orally to him a large amount of fentanyl in order to kill him.
As part of your investigation, did you or did investigators get DOPL history?
Yes.
Scott, can I get 1-27? While that's coming up, what is a DOPL history?
DOPL stands for Department of Professional Licensing, but in our world, what it means is the state holds a database of all prescription controlled substances that are prescribed, issued, filled, the dates they were filled, who the patient was, the dosage, things like that. The state maintains that information. We can request that for any particular patient within the state.
Scott, if you could embiggen that bottom portion, please. What's the headline here, Detective?
It's just the contents of who the results are being sent to, and then it says no records found for Eric Eugene Richins with his date of birth and the time frame that they searched.
So what does that mean for your investigation?
It means that Eric wasn't prescribed any prescription-controlled substances during that time frame.
Did investigators search Eric's phone for evidence of THC gummy use?
Yes.
Did investigators discover 2 text messages between Kouri and Eric Richins regarding THC gummy use?
Yes, those messages were recovered from Eric's cell phone.
Scott, can I get 2-118D, please? Is this an accurate depiction of a November 20th, 2021 text exchange between Kouri and Eric Richins?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, move to admit, publish 2-118D.
No objection.
2-118D is admitted and now published.
I believe the green is Eric's and the blue is Kouri Richins.
Scott, 2-119D, please. Detective, is this a accurate depiction of a January 13th, 2022 text exchange between Kouri and Eric Richins?
Yes, and again, I believe it's the green that is Eric speaking and the blue that is Kouri Richins speaking.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish.
No objection.
States 2-119D is admitted.
Detective, are you familiar with a children's book entitled Are You With Me that Kouri Richins purportedly authored to help children deal with the loss of a parent?
Yes, I am.
How did you first come familiar with it?
Your Honor, we just want to renew our previous objections to this line of questioning.
Court stands on its prior ruling. Please
Sir, how did you first become familiar with it?
Another one of the investigators from the sheriff's office shared a link with me to a story by Good Things Utah, a local news channel, and I viewed an interview there between Ms. Richins and reporters.
Sir, do you recognize that as an authentic depiction of a screenshot from that interview?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 8-21S.
Your Honor, we renew our 401 and 403 objections.
Overruled. 8-21. Did I get the number right? 8-21S is admitted and published.
Did detectives investigate how Kouri Richins came to appear on Good Things Utah?
Yes. A subpoena was sent to ABC Utah news station to get that information, and part of their production, they produced some emails between Ms. Richins and the production team. It appeared that they had some kind of standardized form that anyone could fill out to requesting to be on the show, and it looked like Ms. Richins had filled that out and they were communicating about the results.
Detective, is that an accurate depiction of the March 24th, 2023 email exchange between Kouri Richins and Good Things Utah?
Yeah, I believe it began on March 24th. There's various dates on when emails were sent back and forth, but yes.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 2-115.
Object to 401, 403, and hearsay, Your Honor.
401 and 403 overruled. With respect to hearsay, there are portions of this were authored by Kouri Richins, other portions authored by people other than Kouri Richins. That's correct.
That is correct. And the portions other than Kouri Richins are offered for their effect on Kouri Richins.
Very good. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to the extent that State's Exhibit 2-115 includes statements authored by Kouri Richins, you may consider those statements for the truth or for any purpose. To the extent they include statements written by someone other than Kouri Richins, you cannot consider those statements for the truth. Rather, you can consider them only for the effect they had upon Kouri Richins as the recipient of those statements.
In addition to Good Things Utah, are you familiar with Kouri Richins promoting the book on KPCW radio?
Yes, again, I was sent a link to their website. I viewed their webpage and saw an interview with Miss Richins and journalists and listened to an interview that she conducted with them on their website.
Scott, 8-37, please. Is this an accurate depiction of the website promoting the interview?
Yes, it is.
Is it dated April the 12th, 2023?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 8-37.
Object to 401, 403, and hearsay, Your Honor, and authenticity.
Do you actually have an authenticity objection?
Yes.
Please approach. Scott, would you redact all text below the photograph, please? And the caption to the photograph, please. No, I'm sorry, not the headline, the caption to the photograph.
Oh.
There we go. Okay. Remind me of the number, Mr. Bloodworth.
Your Honor, 8-37.
Do you want to put an R on it? Does it matter?
We should put an R on it.
Okay. States 8-37R is admitted. Defendant's objections thereto are overruled. Ready to publish?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Towards the end of March 2023, did the Summit County Sheriff's Office receive an anonymous Amazon delivery of the book?
Yes. Package showed up from Amazon with a copy of the book and also a little standard sticker that you can leave a personalized message on with a gift when you send something.
Scott, 8-20, please. Is this an accurate depiction of a scan of the cover of the book that the Summit County Sheriff's Office received along with the message that accompanied it?
Yes, when we received this, evidence technicians scanned the cover of the book and then the note that came with it as well, yes.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 8-20.
Just 401 and 403, Your Honor.
Okay. Overruled. State's Exhibit 8-20 is admitted.
Thank you. Did detectives investigate who anonymously sent the book?
Yes, a subpoena was sent to Amazon to request the information on who the sender was, and it came back as Lisa Darden.
Scott, 8-34, please. Is this an accurate depiction of the order history provided by Amazon in response to the subpoena?
Yes, it is.
Dated March the 21st, 2023?
Correct.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 8-34.
No objection.
8-34 is admitted and published.
Detective, is Lisa Darden Kouri Darden's mother?
Yes, she is.
Did detectives investigate who wrote the book?
Yes.
Who wrote the book?
Objection to 401, 403, and hearsay.
Overruled. Go ahead.
We found text messages in in Miss Richins' phone between her and a contact named Book Writing Lane, who was a book writer, publisher of some type, regarding them writing the book for her.
Are they a ghostwriter?
Yeah.
Stop. 2-121, please. This is 141 pages. You've reviewed this prior to today. Is this an accurate depiction of those text messages between Kouri Richins and Book Writing Lane?
Yes, this is a depiction of part of them.
Mr. Bloodworth, would you approach for 1 moment?
Detective O'Driscoll, are the bubbles in green Kouri Richins and the bubbles in blue Book Writing Lane?
Yes, that's correct.
And does this lengthy text message exchange generally depict Kouri Richins engaging Book Writing Lane, providing them with ideas and circulating drafts of the narrative and the illustrations?
Yes, that's what it appears to me.
Your Honor, the state moves 2-121 into evidence.
Same objection, 401, 403, and hearsay, Your Honor.
The defendant's objections are overruled. States 2-121 is admitted. Members of the jury, with respect to States Exhibit 2-121, the green messages are authored by Kouri Richins. You may consider the green messages in 2-121 for their truth or any other purpose. The blue messages are authored by someone other than Kouri Richins. You cannot consider the blue messages in 2-121 for their truth. Rather, you may only consider them for the effect they had upon the listener, that is, Kouri Richins. 2-121 is published.
Thank you, Your Honor, but the state wasn't going to go
My
through
apologies.
141 pages.
Very good.
Did Kouri Richins discuss the book with her family?
Yes. I'm sorry. Yes. Again, in text messages that we found on her phone, she has discussions with her family members about it.
Scott, 2-112, please. Is this a February 28th, 2023 text exchange between Kouri Richins and her brother DJ?
Yes. And again, Miss Richins is in green and DJ is in blue.
Is this an accurate depiction?
Yes.
Detective, is this a March 8th, 2023 text exchange between Kouri Richins and her mother?
Yes.
Is Kouri Richins in green and her mother in blue?
Yes.
Is this an authentic depiction?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, the state moves 2-113 into evidence and to publish.
Objection 4143 and hearsay. We don't need the instruction.
Defendant's objections are overruled.
Kindle, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this and touching the lives of others. Kindle, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this and touching the lives of others.
Sir, is this a March 22nd, 2023 text exchange between Kouri Richins and her brother DJ?
Yes. And just like before, Kouri Richins is the green bubbles and DJ is the blue bubbles.
Detective, did your investigation eventually lead you to Carmen Lauber?
Yes, it did.
How?
This is a bit of a long-winded answer, so I'll try to just go step by step. We had the information from the autopsy, the tox results, as I mentioned. We had just gotten the downloads from Miss Richins and Eric's phones, and we're starting to go through them. We started comparing what was in the phones with phone billing records for their carriers. We found discrepancies between what was in the phone billing records and what was actually in Miss Richins' phone as far as call logs and text messages. We started looking at the most frequently contacted phone numbers in Miss Richins' phone and in Eric's phones. We found that there were a high number of communications between Miss Richins and the phone number for Carmen Lauber. So we started looking into Carmen Lauber and found that she had a history of drug use and drug distribution. We found that she was on drug court probation in Wasatch County. My partner, Detective Maynard, actually had previous involvements with Carmen, knew a little bit about her. We started looking at who else was, or I'm sorry, we spoke with investigators from Wasatch County that were familiar with Carmen's case, and then learned that Mr. Nick Bonsavage was also in drug court with her and that they were pretty good friends. We started pulling phone billing records for Mr. Bonsavage and found that he had a high number of contacts, communications with the Gunnison State Prison. And so we went to the Gunnison State Prison and requested the phone calls between inmates and Mr. Bonsavage. We started listening to those phone calls because they're all recorded. And we found an instance where Mr. Bonsavage was speaking to an inmate on the phone, and they were discussing getting an Xbox controller for the inmate. And he said, either you buy it or have Carmen buy it and I'll pay you back. Nick said something to the effect of, no, I can't have Carmen do it. I just tried to give her money the other day, and she told me that she had just made a bunch of money selling illicit street drugs. So that obviously, and that phone call took place on March 4th, the day that Eric died. So that gave us more reason to look into Carmen Lauber. We started surveilling her. As part of our investigation into her, we collected the trash from her home. And in going through the trash, we found drug paraphernalia, specifically tinfoil with burn marks and residue on it. And based on my training experience, that's indicative of somebody smoking a substance off of the tinfoil. Based on that information, we then applied for a search warrant.
At this point, I'm going to object to a narrative.
Oh, I'm sorry, a moment. Mr. Vloderworth, go ahead.
Sir, what did you do next?
Based on that information that we had collected, we wrote a search warrant for Carmen Lauber's residence, for her vehicle, and for her person. And that included, among other things, cell phones.
Did you execute that search warrant on April the 26th, 2023?
Yes.
And did you personally execute the portion involving searching Carmen Lauber's home?
Yes, I did.
Did you find any evidence of a crime in her home?
Yes. In Miss Lauber's bedroom, we found THC products, paraphernalia, and a firearm under her bed.
And as it relates to Miss Lauber specifically, what was the problem with the firearm?
She was a convicted felon, and by state statute, she's not allowed to be in possession of a firearm.
When searching Carmen Lauber's room, did you also find a newspaper clipping of Eric Richins' obituary?
Yes.
Sir, is that photograph on the left? It's labeled 8-15R, an accurate depiction of a photograph of Eric Richins' obituary in Carmen Lauber's room?
Yes, it is.
Detective, what was your impression of kind of the collection of material on the left?
Based on knowing that Carmen was in drug court and knowing a little bit about that, how that program works, it seems like she had all of these inspirational quotes that helped motivate her through her progression in drug court, and amongst them were photos of her loved ones, her family, and then amongst all of that was Eric Richins' obituary.
Dead center, wasn't it?
Yep, right in the middle of the mirror.
Thanks, Scott. Can I get 8-18, please? Detective, is this an accurate depiction? A photograph of a C&E hat that you found in Carmen Lauber's room?
Yes. Yeah, that's the C&E stonemasonry logo on that gray hat.
Thank you, Scott. Simultaneous with your search of Carmen Lauber's home, did another deputy stop Carmen Lauber while she was driving?
Yes, we planned it that way because we had a warrant for Carmen's person and her vehicle as well.
Did that deputy seize her phone?
Yes.
During that stop, did that deputy find evidence of a crime?
Yes, he found that Carmen was driving on a suspended license.
Did he arrest her for driving on a suspended license?
Yes, he did.
Did that stop occur in Wasatch County?
Yes.
Did that deputy then book Carmen Lauber into the Wasatch County Jail?
Yes, he did.
Did you and Detective Maynard then interview Carmen Lauber at the Wasatch County Jail?
Yes, we interviewed her several times over a number of days.
What was your approach to interviewing her?
So, as I said before, my partner, Detective Maynard, had previous involvement and knowledge of Carmen Lauber. He knew that she had a history of self-preservation and offering information in exchange for help with her charges. So we knew that going into it. But on top of that, after serving the warrant on her home and being in her bedroom, finding Eric's obituary, it was apparent to me that she probably had some level of guilt or concern over her possible involvement in Eric's death.
Object to speculation and move to strike and non-responsive.
All of it or just parts?
Just the last part.
Okay. Can you be specific about the content of the last part you're moving to strike?
How he assumed Carmen felt by what he saw.
Okay. That part is struck as speculation. Take it from there, Mr. Bloodworth.
Your Honor, can I argue that?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I misunderstood Ms. Nestor's objection. My granting of the motion to strike was incorrect. You may consider Detective O'Driscoll's testimony, give it whatever weight you see fit.
So in addition to what you believe to be Carmen Lauber's motive for self-preservation, upon seeing Eric Richins' obituary, am I right that you thought she might also have some motivation related to her potential involvement in Eric Richins' death?
Correct. That was my impression.
What did you tell Carmen Lauber when you first interviewed her?
When we first spoke to Miss Lauber, we sat down with her. We explained that what we had found in her home would potentially violate her conditions of her drug court, which would put her on the hook for, I believe, multiple felony charges of distribution that she was in drug court for, as well as the new charges with the firearm and the paraphernalia and THC products. We told her that we were investigating Eric Richins' death and that we believe that she may have information about his death that could be helpful to us. And we told her that if she was willing to speak to us about any information she might know, that we could help her with her charges in Wasatch County, as well as the new charges from the execution of the search warrant.
Did you then immediately question her?
No, we didn't ask her any questions at that time. We told her that this was the situation. We wanted her to think on whether or not she wanted to participate in our proposal, in talking with us, and then we let her sit and think on it for a few days.
How many times have you interviewed drug dealers?
Dozens, if not over 100 times.
Was anything about interviewing Carmen Lauber more difficult than interviewing most drug dealers?
Yes, there was more time that had elapsed since the incident that we were talking to her about than what is typical for our interviews. So she had trouble with memory, remembering details of what had happened. And then again, what I spoke about earlier, she had a history of self-preservation. So she tended to minimize her involvement and hold back as much as she could, which is typical of drug dealers that we talk to. They won't give you any more than they have to until they feel like they need to.
Did Carmen Lauber initially inform you that she bought drugs for Kouri Richins?
Not initially. Like I said, she very much minimized her involvement. When she first started talking about it, she said, there's a little bit that I know, and I want to help you with the little bit that I know. But then as we asked her more questions and got more into it, she was more forthcoming with the information that she had, and ultimately told us that Miss Richins had contacted her to ask her for pain pills.
And did she ultimately tell you that she bought drugs on Kouri Richins' behalf from Susan Kohler and from a friend of Nicole Cummings named Robert Crozier?
Yes.
Did she appear that she wanted to cooperate but was having difficulty remembering timeline and details regarding the drug transactions?
Object to leading.
Overruled.
Not only did it appear that way, but she was explicit in saying that several times, that she was having difficulty remember but wanted to help with what she could.
At various points during your interview, did you provide Kouri Richins with information to jog her memory?
I believe you meant Carmen Lauber. You said
I'm
Kouri
sorry,
Richins.
Carmen.
Yes, we provided content from her phone. We provided her with phone billing records that had timestamps that helped us establish a timeline. We showed her maps. We showed her property records. Anything that we could find that would mostly help us establish a timeline and order of events.
Did you stress to Carmen Lauber that she needed to be truthful?
Yeah, several times we told her that we didn't want her to try to make things up, that only tell us what she remembered and only tell us what was truthful. And then we also stressed that we needed a great deal of detail in the things that she was telling us, not vague comments.
Did you tell her that you did not want her to speculate on anything?
More leading. Object.
Overruled.
Yes, I believe there are multiple instances in the transcripts and the videos that show when we said, don't try to guess at what we're asking you. Only tell us what you can remember.
Did you stress to Carmen Lauber that you needed to corroborate any information that she provided?
Yes, we were explicit in telling her that any kind of immunity or assistance or help that she would get from prosecutor's office would be dependent on not just her telling us what she knew, but giving us information that would allow us to corroborate that information.
And did you stress to her that you needed details, in particular, details to corroborate the information?
Object to leading.
Overruled.
Yes. And that discussion got deeper and deeper the more we talked to her. We kept stressing, we need more detail. These are the type of details that we need. And it just kept going from there.
Did you and/or Detective Maynard interview Carmen Lauber 6 times between April the 27th, 2023 and May the 13th, 2023?
Yes. I wasn't there for every single one, but either myself or Detective Maynard was, yes.
Why 6 interviews?
As we spoke to Miss Lauber, she would give us information that she could remember. We would take that information back and work on corroborating it with other evidence, phone records, other details from other witnesses. And then we would go back. We would ask her more questions, try to get more information, more details. It was just a step-by-step iterative process that took several days until we felt like we had the complete picture of what her involvement was.
Did those interviews total about 10 hours?
I believe so, yes.
Were they audio and video recorded?
Yes.
Have you reviewed transcripts of those interviews?
Yes, I have.
Do those transcripts total about 900 pages?
Yes, I believe so.
Did you listen to defense counsel's cross-examination of Carmen Lauber regarding your and Detective Maynard's interviews?
I did.
Did you observe how defense picked certain sentences throughout the 900 pages?
Yes.
In the full context of the interviews, do you believe that those few sentences fairly and accurately depicted the tone and tenor of your interview?
Object, Your Honor.
What's the basis of the objection?
It's trying to make impeachment sound improper, and it's totally not improper. It is.
Don't make speaking objections. Are you objecting to the form of the question?
Yes.
What is the objection to the form of the question?
Your Honor, we object to the form of the question on the grounds that it is seeking a legal conclusion, on the grounds that it is leading, and on the grounds that it is calling for speculation.
Overruled. Go ahead, Diddy.
No, I don't feel like those segments that they picked out at all represented our interviews with Carmen.
Do you think that those those segments without context are misleading?
Object to leading.
You may answer.
Yes, I believe they're misleading.
One of those segments said, or quoted you saying that you needed details to ensure that Kouri Richins will get convicted of murder, and that shortly thereafter, Carmen Lauber asked for blueprints. What was the context of that discussion?
So, as I said before, when we were discussing with Carmen, it was very slow moving at first. And we were trying to emphasize to her the level of detail that we needed to be able to offer her something from the prosecution's office for her cooperation. And part of that emphasis was trying to describe to her the level of detail that would be needed in a courtroom. And it was probably poor choice of words in hindsight. But that was what we were stressing, is the type of information that is acceptable to be used in a court.
Defense counsel also picked the words "get out of jail free card" that Detective Maynard uttered. What was the context of "get out of jail free card"?
So the comment that Detective Maynard made was coupling her, referencing whatever prosecution would offer her in exchange for her testimony, coupled with the fact that there was now a family that didn't have a brother, that didn't have a son, and the importance of the investigation into Eric's death as opposed to any subsequent drug investigations that Ms. Lauber was involved in.
Defense counsel also picked the words from Carmen Lauber. Can you guys write it down and I will sign it? What was that context?
We were trying to get Carmen to complete a written statement to go along with the scattered information that we had been receiving through our interview process, so that we could establish a more chronological timeline. And she was expressing concerns about not wanting to be writing things down in front of other inmates in the cell block. So she wanted us to write it down instead.
And what did you say?
We said, no, that's not the way it works.
Is this a video of various portions of your May 2nd, 2023 interview of Carmen Lauber that we have just discussed?
Yes, it is.
8-58R, as ruled on by the court on the record, is admitted.
He didn't deserve it. Like, it's just not me. Like, I can tell you, yes, I affected people's life by selling dope.
Right.
Okay, I affected my own life by doing dope.
What
But
if yeah.
no, whether it was intentionally, whether he had a bad problem, or whether he was hurt, I don't know. But either way, if it was done purposely, he didn't deserve that.
Okay,
But
totally
I
agree.
don't know that for sure because I don't know their personal situation.
Totally agreed.
I would never do that ever to anybody.
I'm saying that we're gonna need you to really settle down and maybe take a pad and paper
Even if I
and
get
try
out
to write out.
tomorrow,
some
whatever,
details.
we meet again, I can go through
Well, we're gonna
whatever.
talk about that too.
If I need to go through whatever I need to go through and figure it out.
But you know what I'm saying? These details that you're giving us are kind of hazy.
That's because
And
it's to me.
And it's common for people to try to kind of minimize their own involvement, but we're not interested in smacking you with this. But this, at the end of the day, it was the reason we're here. This is a
Like, I don't even
This is a homicide
Lord, and say, hey, do you know about approximately the time when I got those pills from you? I don't know if she's going to be.
Probably not a good idea. But I'm just saying, we're gonna need you to kind of settle down and think about details or timelines. Because we understand that you weren't a part of, conspiring. But that the details about everything we've been talking about are gonna be important.
Right.
The homicide investigation.
Oh, that is not it.
Right. It is.
That is.
It's something that like none of us are used to, right? We don't do it that often. It's pretty crazy for us too.
Yeah,
Not just you to think about, like, it's crazy.
yeah, yeah.
So right now, we're in a good place to where we've got the information that we were hoping you had and needed from you, right? But there's a difference between us knowing and understanding what happened and us being able to present that to prosecutors who have to present it to a courtroom, who have to present it to a jury, right? That has to be way more detailed down the line the further it gets into the system and the process.
Right.
Okay, so that's what we need your help with at this point, is nailing down all those details. And like Eric said, if that means we have you fill out something in writing and, oh shoot, that's not how it happened, scratched out, rewrite it, whatever you need to do, right? Write down something as far as you remember it right now, and then we can work on the details as we continue to talk about it, as we check phone records, as we, do all of our side to corroborate what you're saying, right? And I think a good starting point for that is a written statement. For you to sit down and write out what you told us in the best order that you can remember.
My favorite now, everything I just told you, I probably remember what order I just told you in.
It's okay. And that's fine, because you know what? We want to make sure we get the right story. And so the way you're remembering it is all you can give us. You can't make something up that you don't remember, right?
Right.
So just tell us.
That's why I can't remember.
Even if it's like, I remember it was cold outside, I remember there was.
Like I said, I remember there was, because it was very light snow, like I said. It wasn't something that I had to wear boots in or anything.
When does the time change now? When did we go? March or April? Is it March 15th?
Oh, yeah.
So,
It was dark, because I had to pull, because I didn't even know where this house was. So I had, how do you?
so what time of the day was it? I mean, if it was dark.
It was towards the evening.
So afternoonish evening,
No. It was darker because I had to use the light on the car.
So the fire feather.
Mm-hmm. So I had to pull into the driveway and pull the light onto the fire pit. Like, so,
Gotcha.
okay, let's say this is the house. And if I'm coming that way, and I know I turned right, came down the street, it was right there, and I pulled into the driveway, the slant, and there was just it wasn't a big fire pit, like, it was a tiny fire pit. It wasn't like, probably, those white cinder blocks, not cinder blocks, but the white flat rock that people think.
Yeah.
It wasn't big. It wasn't a big, deep one. Real, yeah. Like, I want to say there was like maybe 2 or 3 on top, and I was dead. It wasn't even a complete one.
And what was the money packaged in? They didn't just leave it loose, did it have rubber bands around it, was it a bag, or envelope? Was the envelope marked with like a bank, or just like plain white envelope?
Just a plain white one. It didn't have nobody's name, didn't have nothing on it. It was just up against, separate, like in the front of it, yeah. Like that, so.
So if I can think about all your communications with Kouri,
Can we pause it for just 1 moment?
cloud, maybe anything like that?
I wouldn't even know how to operate a cloud.
Okay. Was it in your phone?
I have no idea. You guys have all my phones, so yeah.
Or did you erase?
I mean, that's what I was told.
That's why I asked you about them being deleted, because
I don't know.
you can see on your phone.
I mean, you guys.
Well, I think that's a fair question, Carmen, and we're getting down to the brass tacks of this, and so I feel like we owe it to you to kind of start talking to you about what we do know. What we do know is within a day or two after Eric dying, you got a new phone. Okay?
I think that's what died.
Possibly. We also know that there are texts between you and Kouri that were deleted. I delete them too. Again, we're not looking to put new charges on you, but we're getting down to that area. We're going to need to be more open and honest with each other, because there's things that we're talking to you about that conflict with some evidence that we have to an extent. And again, I'm not here to beat you over the head with it. As a cooperating witness, that information is actually really good for you. And frankly, it's now a good time to kind of talk to her about the conflict applications. So here's where it's at with McKibbin and your drug court, okay? They are looking for, and it's gonna be upsetting, but let me finish. They are looking to explore your drug court deal and ask for 7 years on your 2 first. 5 years for the one felony, and then a 40% portion for the second, for 7 years. The only exception to that, and the only thing that they're willing to kind of help you out with, is if you can help them out with this.
And by help, he means like, give us the details that will ensure Kouri gets convicted of murder.
Oh my God.
This is a serious case, and I'm not
That
trying
is
to.
way more of my.
I know, and listen,
Don't freak out, okay, because this is a long process.
And this is a good thing, and this
We're
is
here to
good
help
news
you.
for you. So there's one more consideration that McKay has. Do you need that?
No, well,
This is kind of funny because,
It's nothing funny about
well,
it.
this second part is, it looks like you guys figured out how and when people were gonna test, looking at your text messages. You and Bon Savage.
We just know.
And that's fucking awesome. I wanna know how you did it. Are you tracking with me, what I'm saying? We,
Happy what you're throwing, believe me.
we need hard details. There's no more.
I'm going to do whatever, because I've struggled so hard to get me where I'm at.
That's great motivation.
And I literally want to complete drug court, and I want to move out of state. I want to leave all this behind,
Well, that's the only way you get
my
people out
path.
of your life.
Like, I don't want no ties with nobody. I want to change my phone number. Me and Troy were talking about it. Like, completion of drug court, my shit's happening. Don't. I told him you call him that, he laughed. I said, you know, you're known as Mr. Vegas.
I think that's what you need to do, Carmen.
Two of my daughters
Get
on
out of here and
board.
start over.
And he's an amazing person. Like, I've never had someone that came in my life. Like,
That's a good thing.
I'm willing, like, I've been at graduation, I want to be gone. Like, I want to leave hiding house. I want no talk to nobody in my life. I don't.
We have some hurdles here.
And that's why I said, I no longer want to work for the Corys. Corey. I don't want, I want to do what I can help do, what needs to be done to fix this.
Right.
Well, I feel like that as you were telling us that, you know, there was some talk about, can you get what MJ had, and it was kind of very superficial. Can you retell that story with all the detail you can remember?
I really can't, like, I just remember, I don't even know if it was, because like I said, I can barely remember some of it because it was so long ago. But I want to say it was the Michael Jackson, and like I said,
So tell me how that conversation would be structured. He sends you a text, and he tells you,
I want to say maybe she did say that.
he says, can you get,
She said it first to Michael Jackson, and that I know because
and so tell me how that would have been said. Because I didn't know Michael Jackson died.
I didn't know it too. Either, like I said,
I knew it was a drug overdose, but like, not specifically fentanyl.
was it?
He didn't say, I can look it up.
Look it up because it's not so curious too, but
So the thought was insinuated that he wanted you to get something that somebody could die from.
I know one thing that when we got the one, it wasn't dark enough. I didn't well.
So there was a couple of, there was
one,
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
I could see in your face.
Little transactions.
So I wanted, it's so confusing, but, okay. So I want to say when she asked, but like I said, oh my hair.
We'll give you all the time in the world that you need for the days been remembered, Carmen, but I just want you to know that if you're gonna work with us here.
So it'd be so easy to have like pieces that we can, like blueprints.
Here's the biggest piece.
I don't want to be that big.
Well, the good news is that big piece helps you out
And
tremendously.
that's what, like I said,
You hold on the
I
cards.
love Eric. He was a damn good dude and he didn't deserve it. It was done intentionally, he did not deserve it.
We believe you, and that's why we're here working on what your get out of jail free card looks like, based on this information. But there's three little boys that don't have a dad. There's a family that doesn't have a brother. You know,
But when I get that,
Corey's at with the deal, but
but like you guys said, she's living her life right now and that's everybody else is fucking suffering. Like them
that's
little
what
boys
it appears.
love their daddy.
I'm sure they did.
I mean, I've seen it. Eric was that was his pride tradition. Them boys were his everything. People complain about he was gone all the time, but he worked so much. But you know what? At the end of the day, when he come in, them boys were there. And that he was, like I said, that it weighed heavy on me.
What? So we need you to start getting this on paper. What's gonna happen tomorrow with your OSC hearing? You're gonna appear for it. McKay's just gonna say that he's not prepared to speak to it to get us a day or two.
Okay.
So we're gonna come back tomorrow.
But can we get it up this week?
I think we can get it cleared up as far as our end of it as quickly as we can get a timeline down. I know this is exhausting. I'm concerned about sending paperwork back with you in your cell because then everybody's gonna be like, what's that? What's
Yeah, can you guys just write it and I sign it?
Oh, no. That would, you know what I'm saying? Because this is gonna have to be your testimony.
We have to go to court, well, that's why it's so hard to do.
Detective, there's several references in that video to McKay. Who is McKay?
McKay King is a prosecutor with the Wasatch County Attorney's Office.
And he was the prosecutor in the drug court.
I believe so. He's the prosecutor that we talked to and dealt with.
Talked to in terms of getting immunity.
Correct.
There's one more statement that defense counsel picked out. That was that Detective Maynard said, the goal is to convict Kouri of aggravated murder. Do you recall the context for that statement?
Yes. Detective Maynard was speaking with Carmen about the possibility of having to appear before a grand jury. And he again was explaining to her that process and how that works and the details that they needed for that court hearing as well as an investigation. And he was trying to convey to her the level of detail that they needed.
Is this an accurate depiction of the May 12th, 2023 interview?
Yes, it is.
And this is serious shit, but that's more up the chain serious shit. Like to the highest extreme, I think.
Well, but here's the thing, you've cooperated. At the end of the day, everybody is on the same page with, the goal is to convict Kouri for an aggravated murder. These parallel drug investigations, those aren't priority.
Right,
That kid goes on every day, everywhere. That's not what we're here for.
right. I was about thinking though, that made it.
Well,
Right.
that's why I had to clear this up, because I'm not gonna, like, give you an empty promise that
Right.
if it's bullshit, I'm not gonna say it.
So do I have to go down there Wednesday?
So yeah, that's something totally different than all of this. That is basically formalizing your testimony. This is 3-cop level in an interview room, right? That's where it's formalized with the grand jury.
But then they can't come back on me, right?
No, they're not gonna charge you.
With-
No.
Detective, did you arrest Kouri Richins on May the 8th, 2023 pursuant to an arrest warrant?
Yes, I did.
That same day, did detectives execute a search warrant on the Willow Court home?
Yes, the Richins home.
Were Kouri Richins and her sons living at the home at that time?
They were living there, but we planned the execution of our search warrant intentionally to avoid the boys being home, so we waited till after they went to school.
When detectives executed that warrant, did they recover an orange notebook from a nightstand in the master bedroom on Kouri Richins' side of the bed?
Yes.
Detective, is this an accurate depiction of a portion of that orange notebook?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 2-66R.
We renew all our previous objections that have been ruled on by the court already, Your Honor.
Understood. 2-66R is admitted and published.
Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. The day started out as a typical day. Ashton had a dentist appointment that morning to get a filling put in for his cavity. After the dentist, we headed back home so Ashton could stay home with Weston and Bailey while I went to do my weekly volunteering at the school. That afternoon and evening, I made dinner. We all ate as usual and ended the night like any other evening. Around 8:30, I read the kids' books, and about 9 o'clock, they all climbed into bed. Eric had been on his phone most of the evening in a texting war with a hunting guide from Mexico and a few other people trying to get his horns back to the US. Around 9 or 9:15, he was screaming mad at these guys and threw his phone. At that point, he said, "Let's go have a celebration drink." The following day, I was closing on a huge investment home in Midway. I had been working on this deal for 4 months, and closing day was finally here, and Eric and I were going to toast for the closing. We went into the kitchen and both started grabbing ingredients for a Moscow Mule and lemon drop shots. He was going on and on about these guys in Mexico and was so mad about the entire situation. We finished talking, made our way back to our room, and brushed our teeth. As we both climbed in bed, we could hear Ashton moaning and tossing and turning. He was having nightmares again. I told Eric I would go sleep with him and try to calm him down. We kissed, said I love you and good night, and I went to Ashton's room and laid with him. 30 minutes later, I could hear Eric snoring and I finally fell asleep. I woke up from sleeping with Ashton and went to crawl back in my bed. It was dark and awkwardly quiet. Eric snored more times than not, so I thought it was weird I didn't hear anything. I crawled into bed and went on Eric's side of the bed and put my arm over him. He was cold, very cold, so I pulled the blanket up on him, but his body just felt so strange to me. It was heavy, is the only word I can think to describe it. So I nudged him and said, Eric, Eric, nothing. I kept nudging him and just remember the stiffness of his body. I jumped out of bed and ran and turned the lights on. He was pale and yellow, mouth open. An urge came over me that this wasn't good. I grabbed my phone and called 911. I ran up to Eric to see if he was breathing or had a pulse, but he didn't. Panic had sunk in as I was talking to dispatch. She had me pull Eric to the floor to do CPR. As much as I didn't want him basically falling on the ground, I pulled him as hard as I could to get him down and began CPR and compressions until the EMT arrived. They immediately took over, getting out their defibrillator and started compressions. The worst part of all of it was when they were pumping his lungs and blood went everywhere. It's like a replay in my head and it won't go away. I began screaming at the EMTs that they weren't doing it right. He shouldn't be bleeding. How would I really know what is right and what is wrong? I have no idea. I screamed, cried, and just sat in the corner of the room by my dresser, rocking back and forth, hoping and praying this was a dream. The EMT finally asked me to leave the room. He could see I was visibly upset and couldn't function. He took me to the living room and had me sit down. I paced back and forth until an officer came out and asked if there was someone I would like to call. I called my mom back to back until she finally picked up. I told her to come quick. The ambulance was here. Something is wrong with Eric. I was upset and crying still. I hung up and still paced back and forth until I finally just dropped to my knees, praying this wasn't happening. At that point, the head EMT walked in to tell me he didn't make it. We did all we could do. I lost it. I immediately ran to the bathroom and began throwing up. During all of this, my kids had woken up, and I had quickly yelled for them to stay in their room. They knew something was up. They saw the ambulances and cop cars for what had seemed hours at this point. I was curled up around the toilet when my mom walked in with the EMT lady. I could tell she had no words and just rubbed my back. She already knew he was gone. The EMT told her. I was distraught. So was she. We couldn't even speak. She just started to say, "What happened? What happened?" But I had no answer for her. I have no idea. We said, "I love you, good night." I went and slept with Ashton, and that was it. It just didn't make any sense. I told the EMTs I needed to call my father-in-law. They found my phone for me, and I did. I just said something was wrong with Eric. He needed to come over quick. I told him the ambulance was here, but he wasn't breathing. The odd thing about when I had called Gene is it was about 3:45 or 4 a.m. by this time. And he had sounded so perky on the hello when he answered, almost like he was expecting my call. It was very strange.
Detective O'Driscoll did detectives also execute a search warrant at the Willow Court home on November the 7th, 2024.
Yes.
Is this an accurate depiction of a document recovered from the kitchen cabinet of the home pursuant to that search warrant?
Yes, it is.
Did Kouri and Eric Richins exchange text messages regarding the Midway mansion?
Yes. I believe those were located on Eric's phone.
Is this an accurate depiction of a January 5th, 2022 text exchange between Kouri and Eric Richins?
Yes. And the green bubbles are Eric and the blue bubbles are Miss Richins.
Detective, is this an accurate depiction of a March 2nd, 2022 text message between Kouri and Eric Richins?
Yes, that's correct.
I want to turn now to some other text messages. Is this an accurate depiction of a May 24th, 2023 text message between Kouri Richins and her brother, DJ Kouri?
Yes, it is.
Detective, is this an accurate depiction of a May 23rd, 2023 text exchange between Kouri Richins and her mother, Lisa Darden?
The date I'm seeing is May 31st.
Sorry, May 31st.
But yes, between Miss Richins and Lisa Darden.
Detective, I'd like to turn now to some phone calls. Is this an accurate transcription and audio recording of an August 22, 2023 phone call between Kouri Richins and Lisa Darden?
The transcript does represent that, yes. I don't have the audio recording, but the transcript is accurate.
Ladies and gentlemen, during this telephone conversation, you will hear the voice of Kouri Richins. You will also hear the voice of people that are not Kouri Richins. You can consider and accept the statements made by Kouri Richins for their truth or for any purpose. The people that are not Kouri Richins, you cannot consider their statements for the truth of what they say. You can only consider their statements for the effect they had upon the listener, Kouri Richins.
Picked up the sandwiches from the diner. Are you asking me that? Yeah. Oh, I did. I thought so. Okay, that's enough of that. Ronnie said, no, no. I said, Ronnie, yeah. And there was something about a love letter put on the seat of the truck with the sandwiches. I said, I don't think so, Ronnie. I never heard that. I said, I believe they were eating in the office. Yeah, supposedly you put a love letter on the seat of his truck with the sandwiches. No? Yeah, exactly. The office? Yeah. So it's just bullshit. Yeah. He became deathly ill. Well, Bailey was there. Like, and that's what I put. Yeah. That's what I put. God, they can come up with some wild shit. I told BJ, I was like, what do these people do? To sit around a damn table and see who can come up with the craziest fucking story? Well, you know, they were saying I put a love note on a poisoned sandwich and put it in his car? What the hell? Yeah. God, look like a psycho. Like, here's a poisoned sandwich I gave to you, and here's a love note on Valentine's Day. Like, what the fuck? Here's truck. But on the seat of his truck is what it said. What in the hell? Oh my God, they are nuts. And they're gonna feel so stupid. And that's the thing. I feel like all of America, really. When people get up to actually testify and say, no, that is a lie, that did not happen. I was there. You can't compete with somebody who was actually there on your belief. Right. You know, so I'm just like, you know, and the stupid part is the freaking detectives, those Driscoll, all those idiots, they know this. When they were at my house, I told them this. But they're damn, will you have through anyway? And I almost wonder if they didn't tell the prosecutor. So they're saying it was on, they're saying just a few days later, Valentine's Day, Kouri made Eric a sandwich and placed it on the seat of his truck along with the supposed love note. Oh my gosh, what the hell? And then the next question is, when Eric ate the sandwich, he immediately broke out in hives, had trouble breathing. Later told his friend he thought Kouri tried to poison him. It is so fucking sad that you would go to this lie. And Austin was right. I did go back and look where they do start with, I believe. Well, I'm going to have a whole bunch of I believe today when Rick calls me. Well, exactly. And that's what I was like, well, if you believe, then I believe this. Yes. Exactly. Oh my gosh, they're ridiculous. So Ronnie said, when are you calling him? And I said, I'm not. He's supposed to call me today. I said, and then I want my question answered. I believe. I'll show you, I believe. And he just sent me a text and asked me when I'm free today. But just like I said, go ahead and call. Ronnie's going to call back and we're not done.
Scott, can I please get 2-77 and 2-77T? Detective, is this an accurate depiction of transcript of a second August 22nd, 2023 phone call between Kouri Richins and this time her brother, Ronnie, regarding Valentine's Day 2022?
Could Scott scroll through a couple of the pages just so I can verify?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, the state moves to admit and publish 2-77 and 2-77T.
Same instruction, Your Honor, but no objection.
As with the last audio recording and transcript, you may consider Kouri Richins' half of this conversation for the truth of the matter. You may not consider the statements made by people that are not Kouri Richins for the truth of the matter of what they say. You may only consider those people's statements for the effect they had upon Kouri Richins as the listener. 2-77 and 2-77T are admitted.
Eric a sandwich and put a love note on it, and the sandwich was poison.
Oh my God, I know. Like, no, the fuck, that did not happen. I was like, no, that didn't happen. Here's what happened. Nanny can testify. That's not who fucking lived there. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
Like, that's not at all what happened. Where the fuck are you getting this bullshit?
Yeah, and like I even like
No.
like my bank statement and stuff showing that I bought lunch at Mirror Lake. Like I didn't make any fucking.
Yeah, I know. I was like, no. I was like, nope. These sandwiches were bought from a restaurant from a diner up the road. Receipts to prove it. This shit didn't happen. They're working in the office, and Nanny's there to testify that all of this is true, and everything they just said is complete horseshit.
Detective, are you familiar with what is known as the walk the dog letter?
Yes, I am.
Is this an accurate depiction of a 6-page letter to Lisa Darden written on either September the 12th or 13th, 2023, that investigators recovered on September the 14th, 2023, from a book that was among Kouri Richins' personal possessions?
This is that letter. It has redactions, but yes, this is that letter.
Starting at the top where it says page 1, read this letter aloud.
Page 1. Walk the dog, but take vague notes so you remember. Here is what I'm thinking, but you have to talk to Ronnie. He would probably have to testify to this, but it's super short, not a lot to it. He will need to tell Sky at the meeting next week. Upon information and belief, just like they say, a year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie was over watching football one Sunday, and Eric and Ronnie were chatting about Eric's Mexico trips. Eric told Ronnie he gets pain pills and fentanyl from Mexico from the workers at the ranch. Not to tell me because I would get mad, because I always said he just gets high every night and won't help take care of the kids. There are pictures in my phone of Eric passed out on the floor or in the chair. Ronnie should have texts from Eric talking about getting high as well. Eric told Ronnie he keeps them in an allergy pill bottle in his work truck, so I wouldn't find them. Ronnie never told me about the conversation. Eric finally told me and asked if Carmen could get him some. Eric never wanted anyone to know he had an issue, especially get caught. He always wanted Kouri to go down for him. When they traveled, Eric would put his drugs in Kouri's bag at the airlines right before they boarded. That way, if they were caught, Kouri got in trouble, not him. Once they got to wherever they were going, Eric would pull the drugs out of her bag, and it would cause a huge fight. She was pissed he would risk her going to jail for his drug use. He just would laugh about it. Eric couldn't ruin his image that he had drug issues, so he would do whatever he had to. Kouri has never done any type of pills, didn't like them. Rarely would she consume THC, only if Eric begged her because it was a special occasion. Reword this however he needs to make the point, just include it all. The connection has to be made with Mexico and drugs. Ronnie will have the messages to prove Eric confided in him about getting high. It can be short and to the point, but has to be done. Upon information and belief, LOL. They never found pain pills or fentanyl in my house because he hid it in allergy bottle in work truck, and Cody emptied out work truck within a week, so they were never found. When you talk to Ronnie about this, meet up with him in person. I worry sometimes your house and phone are bugged. Maybe drive down to SL and meet him after work without Bree. Tell Ronnie don't overanalyze it. It was a quick 2-minute conversation, LOL. Tell him I need him to do this. Bring me home and then we will get those damn bitches. Also, please text Lotto or call. Tell him do not text me anything about us doing things together ever. Like church, skiing, trips, nothing that puts us together. It doesn't look good. We're so close to the end, let's push through. Have the conversation with Ronnie before he meets with Sky. Then tell him to tell Sky at the meeting about the conversation. Hang in there. We're almost there. Love you to the moon. Take vague notes of all this so you remember before you walk the dog.
Detective, does Sky in that letter refer to Sky Lazaro, Kouri Richins, former defense counsel?
Yes.
No further questions.
Ms. Nestor, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let's jump right back into that letter since we're on it while it's fresh on our memory. It's Exhibit 286 for the record.
You want me to put it back up?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
There you go.
Thank you so much. All right, so this letter that you just read aloud, do you know the date that it was written?
I believe it was September either 12th or 13th.
Okay. And in this letter, the very beginning letter tells, I guess if it's her mother that she's addressing it to, if that's what you say, that to remind Ronnie to tell Sky this story, correct?
What part are you referencing?
The story about what Eric told him about getting fentanyl from Mexico.
There is a part that says tell Sky at the meeting next week.
Okay. So it looks like there's about to be a meeting with her lawyer, Sky, right?
I have no idea if that happened or if that was about to happen.
Okay, well, that's what it says.
It says at the meeting next week.
All right. So there's a meeting coming up with the lawyer, and Kouri is relaying something that Ronnie had known from the past, just and something that occurred between him and Eric in the past, right? When they were watching a football game.
Pause for a moment. Go ahead, Mr.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
Sustained.
Okay, let's blow it up. We're going to get very particular. All right. A year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie was over watching football one Sunday, and then she tells a story about something that Eric allegedly told Ronnie, right? And just by the way, if you could go up just a little bit above that.
Wait for the answer.
Wait, before let me rephrase. Katie, if you could go back up to he will need to tell Sky at the meeting next week, just start right there and then highlight. And then thank you. I'll rephrase.
You're withdrawing that question.
Yes, sir, I am. So he's going to need to tell Sky next week about a year prior to his death, something Eric told Ronnie, allegedly, right? About his trips to Mexico.
Your Honor, there's no question there.
It ends in a question mark.
Thank you, Your Honor. Right?
It includes the word allegedly.
Yes. Right?
Any other objection?
Your Honor, perhaps you could just re-ask it again.
Sure. One more time, Ms. Nestor.
In the letter, because you said you weren't sure, so we're looking right at the letter. In the letter, she says at a meeting with Sky next week, and she talks about Ronnie telling a story about a year prior to Eric's death, Ronnie being over watching football one Sunday and talking to him about his trips to Mexico, right?
That's what the document says.
Okay. As the chief investigator of this case, did you ever go to Ronnie and say, hey, did this happen?
I believe investigators reached out to Ronnie. I don't think it was me, but I believe one of the other investigators reached out to Ronnie for interview and were not able to talk to him.
So the answer is you were never able to confirm or deny with Ronnie whether this actually happened.
I was not.
Okay, let's go to the next page. Then she tells a story about Eric putting drugs in her bag at the airlines right before they board. You see that? Can you highlight it, please, Katie? Now, that story has been verified by Allie Staking, her friend that testified before this jury, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
Have you been sitting in this?
The objection's overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Is that right?
Could you rephrase the question?
That story about Eric putting drugs in Kouri's bag when they would travel and causing a fight was verified in this courtroom by Allie Staking under oath. Is that correct?
I listened to Ms. Staking's testimony. She told of one incident when that happened.
Okay.
This says Eric would, as if it happened multiple times, so I don't know. I just know what I heard Ms. Staking testify to.
Did you ever ask any of Kouri's friends or family if they knew of situations where it had happened before?
Or what had happened before?
Where Eric had put drugs in Kouri's luggage when they traveled?
I don't recall asking that specific question, but I think I heard about it coming up I don't remember who the conversation was with, but I think I had heard something to this effect before.
Was it involving a trip to Mexico?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. Do you remember where the trip was involved?
I don't. Sorry.
So at least someone in your investigation did at least suggest that they knew of another situation besides Hawaii where Eric did this.
No, I don't know if it was a separate one or if they were referencing the same one. I don't
Okay.
know for sure.
All right. All right. If we could go to the bottom of highlight the bottom half for me. All right. There's references in here that Ronnie will have messages on his phone to prove Eric confided in him about getting high, right?
That's what this text says.
As the chief investigator of this case, did you ever go check Ronnie's phone to see if those existed to verify this?
I was made aware of this letter after May 8th
Of
Like-
2023.
of 2023.
Okay.
Like I said, I believe investigators reached out to Ronnie to talk to him in general about the case, and he denied letting us talk to him. So, no, I was never able to confirm this with his cell phone.
So we sure have sat in this courtroom and listened to a lot of testimony about search warrants to seize phones. You know how to do that, right?
I do know how to do that.
Didn't issue a search warrant to get Ronnie's phone to see if that happens to be true.
No, but like I said, this information came to me well after May 8th, 2023.
Okay, sir, that's 3 years ago, right?
Yep.
And isn't it true you issued a search warrant as recently as 2 months ago to search the house for, I think, the 10th or 11th time, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and then can we go to the very last little bit about they never found pain pills or fentanyl in my house? At the bottom? Yes, please. Thank you.
I can see that.
You can see it? Great. Okay. So again, this refers to the previous page where Eric allegedly told Ronnie that he kept his drugs in an allergy bottle in his work truck so that Kouri wouldn't find it, right?
Objection foundation, that's not what the previous page says.
We
But-
just go back to the previous page.
Sure.
What is the
Absolutely. Katie, can you go back to the first page and find this section in there about where he kept his drugs? Yep. Eric told Ronnie he keeps them in an allergy pill bottle in his work truck so I wouldn't find them. Isn't that what that says?
The whole sentence says Eric told Ronnie he keeps them in an allergy pill bottle in his work truck so I wouldn't find them.
And by the way, this was seized September 14th of 2023, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And at that point, had you revealed to Kouri that you had found an empty hydrocodone bottle in Eric's nightstand the day of his death? Had you ever revealed that to her or her lawyer at this point?
I personally didn't find the bottle.
Okay.
It was located on the night of Eric's death and was transported with his body to the ME's office.
There's no way for Kouri to know that when she wrote this, right?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
sustained?
Okay, that's fair. All right, go back to what we were just talking about, to the bottom of the second page. All right. The never found pain pills or fentanyl in my house because Eric hid it in an allergy bottle in the work truck, right? So that connects to what we just saw on the first page of what he allegedly told Ronnie, right?
What is your question? Yes, I can see that this document says that.
And the next sentence says, and Cody I'm sorry, it's cut off on my screen, but not that one. I'm going to share a screen with the jury. And Cody emptied out work truck within a week. We've heard that verified by Cody in this courtroom that he said to the jury under oath, correct? While you were sitting in here.
Objection, foundation. I don't think that's what he said.
Sustained. You got to rephrase.
Did Cody come pick up the work truck within a few days of Eric's death?
I'm not personally aware.
Did you sit in this courtroom and hear him testify to that?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, I sat in the courtroom. Yes, I heard his testimony. I don't remember exactly what he said, but
And just in case the jury has been so focused on that witness box that they don't notice what's happening back here, you've actually been in this courtroom every single day, every single minute, listening to every single person testify, right?
nearly, yeah,
Almost.
almost.
Maybe a bathroom break here and there, which you're entitled. Okay. All right, let's take that down. Now, I want to go back to, oh, by the way, the just last little thing on the walk the dog letter, and then I swear I'll quit beating a dead horse. But the walk the dog letter, to your knowledge, was the walk the dog letter ever delivered to Kouri's mom, to her brother, to the lawyer, to anybody?
I don't believe so, not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now let's back up just a little bit to your entry into this case. Oh, Your Honor, I left my notes. May I please return to the... Too excited and ran up here too fast and left all my questions for you on the back. So, okay. I want to talk to you about the time. So you basically, before you even entered this case as the new head of the investigation,
Lead investigator.
lead investigator, thank you so much. I want to use your terminology. Before that, you did what's called a trash cover at Carmen's house, right?
I call it a trash rip.
A trash what?
Rip.
Rip. Okay, I've never heard that. So you did a trash rip at Carmen's house, correct?
You referenced a time frame. I don't remember what you said. Could you rephrase it?
Would it refresh your memory that around February 21st of 2023, you searched Carmen's trash?
It was probably around that time, yeah.
Before you were technically the lead investigator of this case.
That's possible, yeah.
And you said you found some foil, right?
Yes.
And that's usually an indication that someone's been maybe freebasing, heating it up in foil and then smoking it, typically.
I don't know the term freebasing, but
I'm from the 80s. I'm old, so you probably don't know that term. But
from my experience, people will put a substance, any substance that they want to smoke, on top of tinfoil. They'll heat it from underneath with a lighter or torch, and then they'll smoke the fumes that come off of the substance.
okay. And did you test the substances that you recovered from her trash that day?
I believe we submitted some of those pieces of paraphernalia to be tested, but I don't remember if we ever got results for them. If they were only NIC tested, I don't remember. I'd have to check records.
Would it refresh your memory to say that only meth and heroin were recovered and no fentanyl?
Like I said, I can't remember without checking my records.
You certainly can't tell the jury under oath that they got fentanyl out of her trash that day, right?
No, I don't remember us finding anything that was confirmed as fentanyl.
Okay. And then at the end of March, I believe, someone started tracking Carmen's car. Is that right?
Correct.
Was that you all or was that Mr. Gabler?
Who was you all?
The law enforcement, sorry.
We did apply for a GPS tracker warrant for Carmen's vehicle, yes.
All right. And then you get to be assigned a lead investigator around April the 11th.
I think it was in March sometime. I would have to check my notes again, but I believe it was about mid-March, early to mid-March.
Okay. And the first real step that you took as lead investigator, would it be fair to say that was when you applied for a warrant for Kouri and Eric's cell phones?
Oh, it's been just as long for me as everybody else. So I remember that I applied for a warrant for, well, I'm sorry, I don't remember. One of the first things I remember doing is applying for a search warrant for medical records for Kouri.
For Kouri?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. All right. And did you also apply for medical records for Eric?
I think those had already been requested or seized subject to a warrant.
By Detective Woody. Actually, I think she did testify to that. I think that's right.
I believe so. One of the investigators previous to my getting into the case.
And then you decided to knock on Kouri's door and interview her, right?
At one point I did, yeah.
And when you showed up to interview...
Objection, Your Honor, beyond the scope.
Can I have the court's indulgence for just a moment? I need to go chat with my co-counsel for just 1 second.
No problem.
All right, so we are going to leave that topic alone and we're going to move forward, okay?
Okay.
Also, the other things that you did in the mid to end of April of 2023, shortly after you're assigned to the case, you also looked at extracted Kouri's cell phone, did you not?
Yes, I would have to verify the date, but yes.
Okay. And when you extracted the phone, were you able to start looking at her texts and looking at her everything in her phone?
Yes. At this time, we had just acquired our own forensic equipment. So previously, we relied on the RCFL for our digital forensic evidence extractions and so forth. We had just started getting our own forensic equipment. And so I downloaded Kouri's phone, and I don't remember the format of the software to analyze it, but I do remember seeing the text messages and the gaps in the text messages.
Was that the first time you'd ever extracted a phone on the new equipment?
I don't remember it was the very first, but it was one of the first times, yes.
And was there anybody who assisted you in doing that extraction?
Yes, Miss Gibson did.
And are you or Ms. Gibson certified on Celebrite or the extraction gray key, whatever you use to extract it?
Miss Gibson is. I'm not.
All right. And then after you extracted Kouri's cell phone, you interviewed Chelsea Barney, did you not?
I did.
And Chelsea's testified here. Chelsea was Ms. Richins' dear friend from junior high, right?
That's what I understood, yes.
And when Chelsea came in to be interviewed, didn't you tell her that you had evidence that she and Kouri had spoken the night of Eric's death?
Chelsea did not come in anywhere when I interviewed her. I interviewed her in her home in Heber.
Oh, were you present when she did the interview at the sheriff's department?
No, I was not.
All right. So when you interviewed her at her home in Heber, did you tell Chelsea that you had evidence that she and Kouri had spoken the night of Eric's death?
Your Honor, just a foundation as to what time frame are we talking about?
Can you
lay a little foundation?
Sure, I'm glad to. Can you tell us when you interviewed Chelsea in Heber?
I can't give you an exact date. My best guess is it was probably April sometime of 2023.
Before Kouri's arrest date.
Correct.
And when you interviewed Chelsea in April of 2023, did you represent to her that you had evidence that she and Kouri had spoken the night of Eric's death?
I don't think it was phrased that way. So we had some interest in the timeline of their communication between Chelsea and Kouri the night of Eric's death. Because when we looked at what was available on the phone, it appeared that Chelsea and Kouri texted every single day. Like, they were always talking with each other. And then there was a gap, I believe, between March 2nd and March 4th. So that stuck out to me as unusual. And I did bring that up with Chelsea and just asked her if she knew of any reason that there would be that gap. And then she was actually able to produce some documents from her cell carrier that we went over together, and it looked like that matched up.
So you originally suspected that maybe she had deleted a conversation with Kouri?
That's what it looked like initially, is that there was an unusual gap in communication between these two best friends that I understood them to be.
Okay. And it turned out that was incorrect, right?
From what I'm remembering, yes. So there's some confusion because there were just personal direct text messages between just Kouri and Chelsea. And then there was a group chat of all their friends.
Right.
And it was hard to distinguish in the beginning which occurred when. And I think that's where some of the confusion came from.
But ultimately, you were able to agree with Chelsea that she did not speak with Kouri the night of Eric's death and did not delete any messages with Kouri, correct?
I couldn't find anything that suggested otherwise.
Right. And then was Chelsea unhappy with the way that you all handled her interview?
I don't know.
To your knowledge, were you aware that she filed a complaint that she had been misled about her phone when she was being interviewed by your office?
I was a...
Your Honor, just objection foundation. I think timing's important here. I think counsel's confused about two different interviews, so I think we need foundation on timing.
Would you just be more specific about the complaint or what it was about in some month and year?
Yes, sure. Shortly after Chelsea was interviewed, the time with you and the follow-up time prior to your interview of Chelsea, was Chelsea asked to come in by Detective Woody? When you reviewed the file, were you aware that there had been a previous interview with Chelsea?
I don't know if it was when I reviewed the file, but I was aware that Chelsea had come in for an interview, and that was prior to when I talked to her.
You're right. And after that interview with Detective Woody, did Chelsea file a complaint about being misled when she was brought in?
Objection, Your Honor, relevant.
Help me out. I'm not sure where we're headed.
Your Honor, I do think it's relevant.
Why don't you approach for a moment?
Okay.
Ms. Nestor, if you'd ask your next question, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. And in addition to you interviewing Chelsea at her home in Heber sometime in mid-April, you also interviewed a close friend of Eric named Jake, right?
Yes.
All right.
Jake Sorensen.
And then you, at the end of April, is when Mr. Bloodworth said on April 26th, when you got the warrant and executed the warrant on Carmen Lauber's house, right?
We executed a warrant on Carmen Lauber's residence on April 26, 2023.
Right. So between April 11th or end of March, when you first joined the case, and April 26th of 23, you possibly got a warrant for cell phones. You extracted Kouri's phone, interviewed Chelsea and Jake. And then that's when the seizure happened at Carmen's house, right?
I'm not sure what you're referencing about the April 11th date.
That's the date on your report when you were assigned to the case. So that's the date I've been using. But if you remember earlier.
That's the date that I wrote the report?
No. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. It's not. If you remember it was the end of March, we'll go with that. That's fine. I'll use the end of March.
But...
Okay. And then you search Carmen's house. And then the next day is when we saw the interview that you had with Carmen at the jail, right?
Yes. So Carmen's home was searched on April 26th. That same day, she was arrested for driving on suspended license. And then the next day was the first time that we spoke with her at the Wasatch County Jail.
So first, the search of her house. Was any fentanyl located in her house at all?
No.
No. Then when you go to interview her, do you know what time of the night or the day she was pulled over for driving with the suspended license?
It was in the morning.
And what time of day did you see her on the 27th?
I don't remember. Okay. I would have to look at the timestamp on the video of the interview.
And I watched the interview, but I never saw anyone ask her if she was under the influence while you were interviewing her. Did anyone ever ask her that question?
I don't remember. I don't think so, but I don't remember.
And is it fair to say in that first interview, before any promises had been made about leniency or anything, Carmen denied ever being asked for fentanyl by Kouri Richins?
Yeah, I testified earlier that drug dealers, in my experience, when you interview them, will initially...
Well, let me stop you. I'm asking about Carmen, not other drug dealers. I'm asking about Carmen Lauber. Did she deny ever being asked by Kouri Richins for fentanyl?
Yeah, as most other drug dealers also do when I interview them.
And did she share with you a personal tragedy that her daughter had OD'd on fentanyl?
Yes.
And did she tell you that because of that, she didn't mess with fentanyl?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
I think she's asking about statements from the prior interview. Let me ask a more specific question. Do you mind approaching for a moment? The objection is overruled. Ms. Nestor, you're next. Did you get an answer to that question? I'm not sure you did.
I'm not sure I did either. So let me ask it again. Did Ms. Lauber tell you that because of what happened to her daughter tragically, that she did not mess with fentanyl? She didn't deal with it?
I believe those were her words, yes.
Right. And as a matter of fact, the first people that ever injected the word fentanyl into any conversation with Carmen Lauber were you and the other investigating officers, correct? It came out of y'all's mouth first, not hers.
Objection, Your Honor, argument.
Overruled. If you understand what she's referring to by y'all. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I did it
I'm
again.
still focused on the previous question because I thought there was going to be a follow-up question about my impression.
No. So the first people that mentioned fentanyl in the interview were law enforcement, not Ms. Lauber, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Because I think we told her in that first interview that while investigating Eric Richins, we told them that we were investigating Eric Richins' death and that he had died of a fentanyl overdose.
All right. And then you went back and interviewed her again and again and again, right?
5 more distinct separate interviews.
And I believe that I wrote this in quotes because I try to be precise. I believe that when we were listening to the recording, and the jury I trust the jurors' memories on this, but the phrase, "you're the biggest piece," right? That was said.
Yep.
And that meant you're the biggest piece of this puzzle, right?
In context, I'm trying to remember what was said before that. I think there was Miss Lauber made reference to, can we just like put all of the pieces together in front of us so that we can see how it happened?
Actually, it wasn't can we, it was can you put the pieces together for me, correct?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And then go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. And so in context, yeah, we said, yeah, you're the biggest piece of that set of information that we're trying to figure out.
And you also, and I wrote this in quotes, and hopefully the jury will recall this the way I do, you hold all the cards.
Yeah, as in she had all the information that we didn't know.
And we saw her struggling and telling you repeatedly that she could not recall dates. She could not remember certain things. Is that right?
She told us several times that she had difficulty remembering. And that the more that we brought to her and showed her things that were corroborated, the more she remembered and the better recollection she had.
And then within less than a few days of when she finally gave you what you needed, that there was fentanyl involved in her transactions, within a few days is when you issued the warrant to arrest Kouri, right?
We interviewed Carmen between April 27th and May 13th. The warrant for Kouri's arrest was issued by 3rd District Court on May 8th.
But when was it requested? May 3rd? Does that refresh your memory?
I don't request arrest warrants.
You signed, you're right, that's done by the county attorney's office, correct?
They filed charges in the case and requested an arrest warrant. We were made aware of it on May 8th.
Within days of Carmen Lauber agreeing with you that fentanyl was involved.
May 8th falls between April 27th and May 13th, yes.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about your investigation into... Oh, by the way, let me back up. Since you have become the lead investigator in this case, have you ever located the hydrocodone bottle that was found on the nightstand next to Eric?
Can you define located? I know where it's been at certain points throughout the investigation.
Okay.
But we don't currently have it in our possession right now.
That's all I need. I want to talk about the Valentine's Day investigation. All right?
Okay.
Katie, can you bring up, just for the witness only, Your Honor, Exhibit 3-13D as in Delta? Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes. It states Exhibit 3-13D.
And is it fair to say that this exhibit is a visual clip of the locations where Eric was on February the 14th of 2022 based on geolocation in his phone?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation.
I don't know whether this witness would have the basis to know that, so sustained for now, if you can lay some foundation.
I understand what you're asking. As you've been preparing for this case, have you been reviewing the demonstrative exhibits that the state prepared to get ready for trial?
Not all of them, and not this one. I've just seen it in court.
Okay. Did you, as the head investigator of this case, investigate Eric's whereabouts on the days of February 14th, 2022?
Yes, in the sense that Mr. Cocherdimos, the digital forensics expert that the county hired, helped us in the analysis of the phones, and he at some point told us the data that was in the phone regarding Eric's location on the 14th.
All right. So without revealing anything that Mr. Cocherdimos said, what did you learn about Eric's locations that informed how you acted in the future in your investigation?
Objection, Foundation. I don't know how he would know that without here without hearsay.
Well, it's possible that he heard it prior to being in court, and to the extent that is to inform what he did next, we can accept it not for the truth of the matter. Shall we proceed in that way?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's see what the response is.
Go ahead.
Just so I'm clear, you're asking if I'm aware of Eric Richins' location on February 14th?
Yes.
Just based on
The whole
digital
investigation.
evidence?
Yep, and the whole investigation, whatever you did.
Your question was at least tied in some way to Mr. Kouri.
Okay, we'll start with that. So based on your working with Mr. Kouri, looking at the digital evidence that you went through in this case, do you have a knowledge of Eric's locations on February 14th of 2022?
Maybe pause for a minute.
Yes. May it please the court?
Please.
Did you receive information from Mr. Kouri about Eric's locations on February 14th, 2022 that informed your investigation in any way?
I believe so. The truth is I don't remember 100% for sure if and when I knew about location data from Eric's device throughout the investigation. I would have to go back and review reports, especially Mr. Kouri reports.
Can we, Your Honor,
I just don't remember.
Can we see if this document refreshes your memory as to that?
This one or different?
Yes. Can we go through the pages very slowly and give him a minute to see if it refreshes his recollection?
Yeah, objection foundations. I think we're at the same spot we started with a few minutes ago.
Well, we're showing different pages. He testified that he'd never seen the first one prior to being in the court. It's unclear whether that's true for the remaining pages that the witness is being shown right now. I imagine we're about to find out.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you need us to do it again, or did you see them all?
Yeah, I saw it.
Does that refresh your recollection about Mr. Richins' locations on February 14th, or what you knew about them?
It doesn't. This demonstrative Mr. Kouri created, and the first time I saw any of these slides was in the court. And like I said, he may have shared that information during our investigation. I just don't remember.
Okay. So Ms. Richins is here today on charges that she attempted to kill her husband on February 14th of 2022. Is that right? One of the charges.
I believe so, yes.
And you're the head investigator of this case.
Yes.
Did you take any steps to confirm or deny Mr. Richins' movements on the day of February 14th of 2022 when he was allegedly a murder was attempted on his life?
Our team did. We hired an expert in digital forensics.
So what do you know about his locations on that day?
That's what I'm saying. What I know and what I remember are probably two different things. What I knew at some point throughout the investigation is that Mr. Kouri probably found whatever location data was available on his phone and shared that with investigators. I just don't remember the contents of what those said.
So as you sit here right now under oath in a homicide trial, you cannot tell this jury what Mr. Richins did on the day he was allegedly attempted to be murdered. You can't tell them. That's
foundation. Now, the question is, you can't say what Mr. Richins did. There's no foundation for that.
Your Honor, that's not the question I asked.
I'm sorry, counsel, just ask a more precise question. And if it needs to be 3 more precise questions, that's fine.
Thank you, I will.
The foundation objection is sustained.
You cannot say under oath what your investigation showed about where Mr. Richins was on the day that someone apparently attempted to murder him.
I could after a 2-minute conversation with the digital forensics expert that we hired, because I just don't retain that information well.
So you don't know?
I don't remember.
You don't know right now, and we're in trial right now. Do you know right now?
Objection, Your Honor. Ask it and answer.
I'll withdraw.
That one was a little argumentative. Sustained.
I'll withdraw. Speaking of that, were you ever able to confirm or track Mr. Richins and place him? Did you ever check and see if he ever went to the house in Midway on his geolocation? Did you ever ask anyone to do that?
Objection, foundation, when?
I can ask him if he asked anyone to do it.
Well, that's a different question. So the question you just asked was very broad as to time frame. Foundation objection is sustained, but please ask a more precise question.
Did you ever ask an expert, hey, can you see if Eric Richins ever went to the Midway house where Carmen allegedly left drugs in a fire pit?
So I was the lead investigator on the case. I was not the only one making decisions. I am aware that someone in our investigative team directed Mr. Kochodimos to look into Eric's location from his device. Yes.
Are you able to tell this jury if Eric Richins was anywhere near the Midway house around the time that Ms. Lauber claims she left drugs there?
That's a broad date range. So I don't know. I don't have that data in front of me.
Okay. Is it true that through all your interviews with Carmen and your attempts to corroborate what she was telling you, at least one of the times that Carmen allegedly purchased drugs from Mr. Crozier and brought them to Kouri was after Eric was dead?
Her testimony was not that. She didn't remember it that way. We found digital evidence that suggested that.
So after Eric died, it is your understanding that there's still drug dealing going on between Kouri and Ms. Lauber?
I am aware that Miss Lauber conducted a similar transaction to ones prior to Eric's death, after his death with Miss Richins.
On that, that's the occasion, I believe, and you were here. If I'm wrong, please correct me, but that's the occasion where Ms. Lauber claims that Kouri had to write her a check, right?
Yes.
And the check was written out on the Kouri Richins Realty checkbook, right? As you recall from your investigation.
Yeah, I believe it was K. Richins Realty check.
Did you do any corroboration or investigation into whether or not Carmen Lauber did actual work for Kouri Richins Realty that week?
Yeah, I mean, we talked to Carmen about her relationship with Kouri in all ways. And she said she had done some work for Kouri in several different capacities. As far as that week, I don't know that we ever got into those details.
That was the week that they were about to close on the Midway Mansion. Is that correct?
What date are you referring to?
The date that, oh, I'm sorry, strike that. That's fair. The week before she got the check is the week that the Midway Mansion closing allegedly happened, right? Right after Eric's death.
Your Honor, objection. The air quotes, this is testifying.
The air quotes were for the Midway Mansion. That's why I did that. That's what I call it. But for the house on Legacy Drive, I won't do that again. The house on Legacy Drive.
Sorry, can you restate the whole question? I've forgotten it already.
The house on Legacy Drive had closed in between Eric's death and when Ms. Lauber allegedly got this check, correct?
Between Eric's death and when she got the check?
Right.
As far as my understanding, yes.
Did you ever talk to the realtor and say, hey, did Carmen Lauber clean up that house the week before it closed?
Which realtor?
The realtor for the Legacy house.
I'm not aware who that is.
You don't even know who was selling that house?
No.
So I guess the answer is no, you never made any attempt to corroborate whether Carmen did work that week.
I don't know that the realtor would know the answer to that question, but I never talked to them.
Okay. And speaking of the Midway Mansion closing, we've had some testimony here about some closing documents that were signed and dated either the day after Eric died or a couple of days after Eric died. Did you hear that testimony?
I believe so, yeah.
Did you ever go to the people that conducted the closing and confirm whether Kouri was present at that closing in person?
No.
Are you aware that you can do closings on houses without being present in person?
I know nothing about realty.
Okay, well, then I'll let you have a pass on that. Did you ever do any determination as to whether those documents were signed through what's called DocuSign electronically?
I'm sorry, can you say the question again?
The closing documents for the Legacy property. Did you ever do any confirmation or investigation into whether those documents were signed via DocuSign or electronically without being with a wet signature and a pen?
The investigation into the signing on the house and the other financial documents, I wasn't a part of. That was through the prosecution's office's investigator and their experts, their forensic accountants.
But
I wasn't really part of that.
As lead investigator, you can't testify that that was ever done here today.
I can't. I have no knowledge of it.
Okay. You were involved in at least 8 of the 10 search warrants that were issued on this house? Because I think the first 2 were Detective
What do you
Wood.
mean by involved?
You were lead investigator once those warrants were being executed? I think the first two were Woody, so I don't want to credit those
The
two.
title of lead investigator doesn't necessarily mean what I did in those circumstances. I guess I would ask you to be a little more specific about what you're asking.
How many warrants are you aware were executed on the house, on the Richins home?
I believe around 10. I don't remember the exact number.
And in 10 different times of searching, was there ever any fentanyl recovered?
Throughout the 10 search warrants, anything that was recovered during those search warrants that we suspected may contain fentanyl, have traces of fentanyl, were sent to the state lab.
Okay.
We got results back from the state lab. There were some items that.
Okay. Do you want to move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
In the 10 search warrants that were executed on this house, did you ever find any cups, glasses, straws that contained any traces of fentanyl on them?
Let me be clear. I wasn't present at every single time that the house was searched. So the answer is investigators in my team or investigators from the Summit County Sheriff's Office did not find cups, straws, the things you mentioned that contain fentanyl, no.
As you sit here today, can you even tell this jury the exact time that Eric Richins died?
I don't know that anybody can.
Can you tell this jury how fentanyl got inside of Eric Richins based on evidence, not speculation or theory, but evidence?
I know it was orally ingested.
And that's all you know, right?
That's not all I know, but I know it was orally ingested.
To this date, have you ever recovered any of the pills that Carmen Lauber allegedly gave to Kouri Richins to test to see what they are?
That I can confirm for sure are the pills that passed from Carmen's hand to Kouri's hand.
Correct.
No.
Okay. Prior to Carmen Lauber's second, third, fourth interview, there was never a warrant issued for Kouri's arrest prior to that date. Is that correct?
I'm sorry. Can you say the question again?
Prior to the interviews with Carmen Lauber, there was never, that was the first time you all requested an arrest. Well, let me say, because I won't say y'all. The first time there was ever a formal request to arrest Kouri Richins was after the interview with Carmen Lauber, correct?
After at least the first 3 interviews with Carmen Lauber, we had enough information that we believed met a probable cause standard for the arrest of Miss Richins.
Okay.
We gave that information to the prosecutors, and they filed charges in this case. They then requested an arrest warrant be issued from 3rd District Court. I executed that warrant by arresting Miss Richins.
Have you ever heard of hair follicle testing?
I think I've heard that term. I don't know what you're referring to.
What's your knowledge of it?
That people much smarter than me can test hair follicles for what it can tell you about the body's biology. About the extent of what I know.
Specifically, isn't it fair? You've been a narcotics officer for a long time.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevant scope.
This is beyond the scope.
Your Honor, it goes to the investigation or lack thereof.
But beyond the scope of the version or the version of the direct examination regarding the investigation. You have other options to get into this. It's just not right now.
Court's indulgence for just a moment, Your Honor.
Of course.
When you searched Carmen's house, did you test any pills that were found in Carmen's house?
I don't remember. That would be a better question for Ms. Gibson. She handled all the evidence recovered from that search.
You were aware through your investigation that shortly before Eric's death, he was on a hunting trip in Mexico. Is that right?
Yes.
And the very last thing Eric ever did that we can establish before he passed away was a Google search, right?
I don't know if that's an accurate statement, but I know that a Google search was found on Eric's phone the night he died. That was, I think it was searching directions or how far it was from Utah to Sonora, Mexico, I think.
Right. And
if
did
you had to drive, how long it would take to drive.
Okay. And did you do any investigation into where Eric went hunting when he was on his hunting trip in Mexico? Where was it?
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the outfitter. Todd Rice was the contact that we had with hunting outfit in Mexico.
But I mean, where in Mexico? Was it the Sonora area?
I think so.
Also, according to Ms. Lauber, she estimated that each time she got pills that apparently she says she gave to Kouri, they were 15 to 30 pills per transaction. Is that accurate?
Her statement.
The foundation is to when? During interview, during testimony, during when?
Just provide a little more foundation for the question, or a little more detail for the basis of the question.
What is your understanding of how many pills were involved in each transaction that ultimately allegedly went to Kouri?
Approximate, well, total or each time?
Each time.
Each time approximately 15 to 30.
Right. And that would be a total, again, math, but if you have 30 pills times 4, that's 120 pills.
That maths for me.
And you were in the courtroom when strike that. Did you give Carmen rides to meetings with her attorney in your car after she agreed to cooperate with you?
We helped transport Carmen when she couldn't get somewhere. It wasn't usually in my car. It was in Detective Maynard's, but yeah.
How often did you guys give Carmen rides places?
It was only a couple times.
Did you talk to her on the phone?
Yeah.
Check in with her?
Mm-hmm.
Went by and saw her at her house?
We need answers, Steve.
I'm sorry.
You gotta say yes because they can't type. Okay, so what was the answer to the last question about you called her on the phone?
Yes.
You would go by and see her in person?
Well, not just like to see her, but like if we needed to get in contact with her in person for some reason, yeah, sometimes we would go to her house or her work, wherever she was at.
And this relationship or these interactions that you had with her extended from the time she agreed to cooperate with you to literally she showed up in court, right?
If you're referring to myself and Detective Maynard, yes, because Detective Maynard contacts and deals with Carmen a lot more than I do.
Okay. Getting close. I'm sorry. Thank you for your patience. Oh, okay. I want to talk about the, Lord, if they're GIFs or GIFs, I don't know, but GIFs that have come in, those pictures of the goofy pictures that they said that Kouri accessed the morning of the 4th, right?
I'm sorry, who's they?
All right, I'll be more specific. The GIFs, you saw them come up on the screen. They were like joke GIFs, right? That it was testified to that Kouri's phone accessed them all at the same time the morning of March 4th, the morning Eric died, right?
What I understand about the GIFs is that there were, I think, 3 different ones, and that they were somehow accessed on Kouri's device. And the technical jargon of the digital forensics is whatever Mr. Cotradimus testified to.
I'm with you on that. So clearly, I would imagine as the lead investigator, if you're investigating a potential homicide, would it be important to you to look at the very last conversations that the decedent and the suspect had right before the death?
It could be part of it.
Did you do that?
I believe I did. I don't remember what the contents were, but...
Katie, can you please pull up JO11? JO11? And this is only for, yeah, okay. And make it a little bit bigger so that Detective O'Driscoll can see it clearly. And take your time looking at this, and I'm going to ask you some questions about it. Do you recognize these texts? Keep going, Court Katie.
I recognize that they are from Eric's device, yeah.
All right. And they're between whom?
Eric Richins and Kouri Richins.
And what is the date, sir?
March 3rd, 2022.
So this is the day, literally, his last day on Earth. And it's the conversation he had with his wife, right?
That's what it looks like.
All right.
I have to look at all the timestamps to give
certainly
accurate context for that. But
I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Certainly you reviewed this as part of your investigation.
Probably. I'm not remembering them, but
Your Honor,
I have not looked at every single text message on Eric's phone and on Kouri's phone.
Sure, but like the day he died would be in a kind of an important day to check out, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you
Like I said, that's where we got the information about the hunting guide in Mexico. So yeah, we were looking at that information.
So then, Your Honor, may I please admit this as Defense Exhibit 300? I don't even know what we're on yet.
Objection, foundation, or authenticity. I'm also looking at maybe approaches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's pause there. There will likely be additional questioning. Detective O'Driscoll tomorrow morning. Detective, please step in front of Brittany. We'll get you sworn back in. Ms. Nestor, please proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Good morning, Detective O'Driscoll.
Good morning, Ms. Nestor.
I believe when we stopped yesterday, we were talking about the GIFs or GIFs. And I want to start by having you review a document that's been agreed to by the parties. It is exhibit number 3-40. And at this point, Your Honor, we're asking to admit it per stipulation of the parties.
So the witness can see 3-40. And do we want to publish now, counsel?
Please.
Mr. Bloodworth?
No objections.
States Exhibit 3-40 is admitted.
All right. And this was talked about when I believe it was Mr. Kostradimos, I think. It's all blurring together now. Was on the stand, but this is the group of all the GIFs or the GIFs that were in kind of a group and included the ones that were accessed on the morning after the police left Ms. Richins' home, after Mr. Richins passed. Do you remember the testimony about that?
Yes.
Okay. Can we go to the page that shows the GIFs in question? Maybe blow that up at the top. So I think that's two of them. One of them is from, I guess, the movie Dumb and Dumber. And the other one is our president. And I think there was a third one, but it's, yeah, Mr. Spacey and in a TV program, right? And those were the three GIFs that were talked about. And if you blow up the time that they were accessed, they all were accessed at 8:29:03 a.m. on March the 4th. That's the day that Mr. Richins was found deceased, correct?
Correct.
Right. And I know we've already heard the testimony that these are what we call orphaned GIFs. You can't really tell which text they came with and exactly when they were sent or who they were sent to or by. All we know is that they were somehow accessed at that point by her phone, correct?
That was the testimony, Mr. Kostradimos, yes.
Okay. Can you pull up another one of the photos? That is the picture from the house. That's it. All right. This is another picture that was accessed at that exact moment at 8:29. And can you blow the picture up a little bit? Do you recognize what that is, that photograph?
It's the legacy home.
It's the legacy home, right? And was there another photo that was accessed that same morning, also orphaned? Can you find that picture? It's right above it, I think. There we go. Can you blow that picture up a little bit? Thank you. All right. And is that also just a closer up view of the legacy mansion?
It appears so. It's very blurry on my screen.
It is. I think it is blurry. And then can you back out and show the time that one was accessed according to this same group of photos? That one appears to have been accessed at 10:42 a.m. the same morning.
That's what this document says, yes.
Okay. Now, if we could put just on the witness's screen, exhibit JO, I think it's 11, not for the publication yet, Your Honors. All right. And can you take just a moment and blow that up just a little bit so he can read it better? Right. Just take a second and scroll through that and tell me if that refreshes your recollection about any documents you reviewed about Eric's final communications before he passed.
Your Honor, objection. There's no foundation to get to whether or not his recollection requires refreshment.
Yeah, let's pause there. Would you lay a little bit of foundation before we get there?
Sure. And it requires us to go back to yesterday. So yesterday I had asked you right before we stopped if you had, as part of your investigation, reviewed the final communications of Eric right before he passed away, and you mentioned you had. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Based on that, if you could refresh, do you recall the communications you reviewed that day?
Not all of them. Some of them, yeah.
Can we then please blow up this document in front of him and see if this refreshes your recollection as to what you reviewed?
Mr. Bloodworth, the witness doesn't have it yet. Any objection to that question?
Your Honor, I think the objection foundation, I think there requires additional foundation.
I think the question pending is, are these among the things he reviewed? Correct?
Maybe I misunderstood the pending.
Yeah.
That's the question.
So I think.
Can we back up a step? Maybe I'll catch up.
Sure. Ms. Nestor, ask your last question one more time, please.
Are these texts that are before you part of what you reviewed from Eric's final communications on his phone?
Go one step before that. He hasn't seen these yet. He doesn't currently have them in front of him.
Do you recall all of the communications you saw that day when you were reviewing Eric's final communications?
All the texts from his phone?
Yes.
On the day before he died?
Yes.
I don't remember all of them. I remember some of them.
So then would you please look at this document and see if it refreshes your recollection and as to whether these were included in his communications?
Any objection, Mr. Bloodworth?
No, sir.
Okay. The witness can now see what you're referring to, Ms. Nestor.
Thank you, Your Honor. And can you go down just one more and maybe blow that up a little, that photo? Does this refresh your recollection, these communications of Eric's and Kouri's the day he died?
These are time-stamped March 3rd. That's not the day he died, but the day before he died.
Totally correct, because he died in, we think, the early morning hours of the 4th, right?
Yeah, he was pronounced deceased on the 4th.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
sorry, objection foundation is for the meaning of died, right? He was pronounced dead.
I think the witness and the questioning lawyer have a common understanding here. Overruled.
thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so were these included in what you reviewed in the communications between Eric and Kouri on the 3rd of March?
Yes.
All right. And this photograph, if you could blow that up.
Your Honor, objection, his recollection has been refreshed. I think the exhibit can now be set aside.
I'm not publishing it. I'm just got one more question about the photo and then I'm done.
I'll take you down, ask your question. If we need to refresh again, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Wait, did you tell me I could ask the question?
Yeah, I took the photo down. Ask whatever you're about to
Yes,
ask.
yes.
Okay.
Does the photo that you just refreshed your recollection with match the same photo that we just saw in 340? That was the corner of the Midway Mansion.
Your Honor, the photo's still up on my screen and the witness is
My apologies.
staring at it.
Sorry. Is it the same photo, sir?
This one that we just saw that was enlarged, you're asking if that's the same as the one in the text message?
Does it match the one that we just put on the screen for the jurors that came with all those other pictures that morning?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all I have. Done with that. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not. Can I have just one moment, Your Honor?
Of course.
One more step. If we could go back to 340, which has been admitted, and pull up some additional GIFs that were accessed at that same time. If we could pull those up, please.
Sure. There you go.
Okay. So there's the picture on the bottom left-hand corner of the Midway Mansion house, right?
Yes.
And that one was accessed at 10:42 a.m. the morning of the 4th.
Yes.
And the one with the champagne is also that exact same time.
Yes.
And the one with the farmer is that exact same time.
Yes.
And we know for sure that the one on the bottom left was sent the day before because we just looked at that, right? And you refreshed your recollection.
Yeah, I don't know if the part of the extraction that we're looking at right now is saying that that's where that came from. I don't know if that's the same file path, but that photo is the same.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. We can take that down now. All right. I also want to talk to you about, startle me. I also want to talk to you about the Google searches that were testified about here that were on Ms. Richins' phone or computer or both. Did you review those as part of your investigation?
Yes.
All right. And were you able to determine dates on all of those searches when they were made?
I don't believe so. Yeah, that would be a question for Mr. Koutrodimos. I remember seeing the searches and the text of the searches, but I believe he testified that there wasn't a timestamp associated with them and that they differed from the action in the phone that showed the link was actually clicked on from one of those searches.
Okay, perfect.
Those had timestamps.
Okay, the links, but maybe not the searches.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification. And you agree that as of April the 13th of 2022, approximately a month and a few days after Eric passed away, that Ms. Richins' house was searched and she was detained in a police vehicle, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Foundation.
Foundation, yeah.
Sustained. Lay a little foundation.
Are you aware that there was a search conducted on her house on April 13th?
On Miss Richins' house?
Yes.
Yes.
And are you aware that while that search was being conducted, Ms. Richins was temporarily detained in a police vehicle for a period of time?
Objection, Your Honor, calls for a
Overruled on that.
Go ahead.
I think the word detained is the problem there. I think there's been dispute over whether or not she was detained. But she was spoken to. She was asked to wait in law enforcement's vehicle until the lead detective could come speak to her about what was going on with the search.
Okay. So the searches on the website, fair to say that all of those searches are believed to have occurred after April 13th of 2022?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know there were timestamps on the searches, so I can't be sure.
Did you ever interview any of Kouri's family or friends and ask them if they were responsible for any of those, or if they'd ever seen Kouri do it, or who did those searches?
No.
Okay. All right, I'd like to talk about the orange notebook for just a moment. So this orange notebook that was recovered from the house, you don't have any knowledge about the circumstances under which it was prepared, do you? Or why it was written?
I do not.
And you don't know when it was written?
No, I don't.
And this was seized the day Ms. Richins was arrested, which was May 8th, 2023, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
So over a year after Eric's death, right?
Correct.
All right. And here on there is an entry that says on March the 22nd. Can you highlight that, please, Katie? Kouri starts counseling. Do you see that? You need to say yes.
Yes, sorry.
Did you take any steps to verify if that actually was the date she started doing mental health counseling?
I didn't learn anything about her counseling from interviews that we conducted. We did get Kouri's medical records, and I don't remember if mental health counselor was part of those, but that's possible.
And I imagine I forgot the word you used, as a serious crime investigator, homicide investigator, detective, death scene investigator, you've dealt with a lot of victims and family members who've been traumatized by a death and have required counseling. Is that fair?
My involvement with victims doesn't usually go that far to know whether they sought counseling or not. We refer them to the Victims Advocate Service, and they're much more equipped to help them with that.
Great. And have you ever heard of what's called trauma journaling?
No.
Do you know what that is?
No.
All right. You also talked about the fact that you found it, I think you said suspicious, but I don't want to put that word in your mouth, but it was of significance to you that Carmen had placed a Mr. Richins obituary on her memory wall or her inspiration wall or whatever. Is that right?
I noticed it. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it was something that caught my eye.
Did you happen to notice if there were any other obituaries right around it or next to it?
No, I didn't particularly notice.
Can we pull up exhibit? Yes, thank you. The second one, 816, I think. Oh, it's 15? Okay, 815. And that's in, Your Honor, if we could publish it. Okay. Do you remember this picture we introduced of Mr. Richins' obituary on her memory wall?
Yes.
Can you please blow that up, Katie, to show what's right beside it or right under it? Do you see another in loving memory right below it?
Yeah, it looks like a program pamphlet from a funeral.
Okay. All right. Also, the C&E hat, I believe, that was on that wall that you noticed. Did you do any investigation to determine if Carmen actually, if Carmen actually did any work for C&E?
Yeah, based on our conversations, she never worked for C&E as a company. She did work on the Richins house. She interacted with Eric, but she was never employed by C&E.
Okay. Right. I also want to show you a text as part of your investigation of reviewing texts between Eric and Kouri. Katie, if you could pull up exhibit 2 dash, I believe it's 9, 2-3. Thank you. That's it. Before you look at that, do you recall trying to determine, investigating whether or not Kouri was aware prior to Eric's death that at least some, maybe not the house, but at least some of the assets that belonged to them or to Eric were shielded under some kind of a trust, if she was aware of that before he passed?
Yeah, that was part of our investigation.
Right. And did you review conversations she had with people about that and texts about that and things about that?
I didn't have any recorded conversations that she had had. I guess it depends on the timing that you're asking about.
Okay, I'd like to refresh your recollection and see if you look at these texts, if it reminds you if this is one of the things you looked at in trying to make that determination, okay?
Okay.
Can you blow that up? It's exhibit 2-3D as in Delta. And just let him look at all of them, please, just slowly. Give him plenty of time to read. Can you go back up? I think we're missing that one. There you go, the next page. Does this refresh your recollection? Do you remember looking at this set of texts between Kouri and Eric?
No, I didn't have time to finish reading that.
Oh, sorry. Keep letting him read it.
Okay.
Does that refresh your recollection? Do you remember reviewing this series of texts between Kouri and Eric relating to the trust?
I don't remember, and the context of those messages, I can't say that that's what they're talking about.
Okay, so this does not refresh your recollection.
No.
Was it your understanding, without saying anything anyone told you, when you were conducting your investigation, did you become aware that Kouri knew of at least some portion of some aspect of the trust being created before Eric passed?
Objection, Your Honor. More foundation, otherwise it's based on hearsay.
The foundation objection is sustained based upon the witness's prior answer. If you can start smaller, maybe build up to it. There may be some foundation here.
Did you interview people, look at documents, review texts to try to inform your investigation as to whether Kouri knew that Eric had created a trust for at least some portion of their assets prior to his death?
I reviewed information about the trust from several different sources. Everything that I reviewed suggested that she was not aware of how the trust worked or the consequences of the trust.
Totally fair. I think you're right about that. But was she aware that it existed?
Objection, Your Honor. Same foundation objection.
Overruled based upon his prior answer. You can answer, Detective.
I can't think of a specific instance, but I think there was some information that might have suggested that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now I want to talk about Valentine's Day. You were here when Ms. Staking testified to the jury that in a conversation with a bunch of friends, there was some joking references made to Kouri wanting to poison Eric, and then Eric stating he had an allergic reaction and used an EpiPen. You heard that testimony, right?
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation. That's not what happened.
I think your recitation of Ms. Staking's testimony was correct until the last either sentence or clause.
Okay. Did you become aware that at least in some context there was a discussion on about the Valentine's Day incident relating to Eric taking an EpiPen, using an EpiPen?
Ms. Staking, from my memory, testified that there was a comment made by Eric in a joking manner that Kouri had tried to poison him. And then she said that Kouri's explanation was that it was an allergic reaction.
And that he used an EpiPen, right? Didn't she say that was the very last thing she said, I think?
I think so.
Okay. So did you do any investigation into whether or not Eric was treated regularly for allergies?
Yes.
And in fact, he had an allergy doctor. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he had an EpiPen device in the master bathroom that was recovered during the first search.
Probably. I know that there were some located in the refrigerator on one of the searches. EpiPens, that is.
Did you ever investigate whether Eric discussed this allergic reaction with his doctor, his allergy doctor?
I believe one of our investigators contacted the allergy doctor and conducted an interview. I don't remember what the results or content of that interview was.
Did you determine what Eric was allergic to? Was he allergic to avocados or wheat or peanut oil? Do you know?
From what I remember being told by the investigator that had that conversation, it was like seasonal allergies, trees, grasses, dander, things like that.
Okay. Were you ever able to confirm that Eric ever sought any medical treatment for what allegedly happened to him on February 14th?
Just that in his text message, he mentioned that he might go to the hospital. So I don't know for sure if he did, but he was feeling bad enough that he thought he might need to.
Were you ever able to confirm that he did?
No.
Okay. All right. I want to also talk to you about Miss Susan Kohler. Do you know who Susan Kohler is?
Yes.
Who is Susan Kohler?
She's an associate of Carmen Lauber's. She worked for Doreen Kouri cleaning houses with Carmen Lauber.
Okay. And in the course of your investigation, what did you determine, if anything, was the role that Susan Kohler played with respect to this case?
We determined that she sold, I think the number was 15 to 20 Roxy's or prescription narcotic pain pills to Carmen at the request of Miss Richins.
Okay. And was Miss Susan Kohler offered immunity like Crozier and Carmen Lauber were?
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you know?
What's the basis of the objection, Mr. Bloodworth? Or do you need to approach?
Relevancy.
I'll approach for 1 second. The relevance objection is sustained. Ms. Nestor, please proceed.
Did you ever find any evidence or suggestion that anything Susan Kohler sold to Carmen Lauber contained fentanyl?
We found a bag of loose, I believe they were hydrocodone pills in the mudroom walkway cabinet in the house. They were tested. They did not contain fentanyl.
Thank you. You also testified, I think, yesterday that shortly before Eric passed away, he went on a hunting trip to Mexico. We talked about that a little bit, right?
Yes.
Was there any effort made to try to track Eric Richins' phone movements while he was in Mexico during that time period?
I don't believe we were able to get any kind of location data from Eric's phone. I think the location data came from call detail records, as was demonstrated by Mr. Contradimos.
Okay. And you also reviewed the phone calls. Well, strike that. I'll strike that, Your Honor. Okay, I think I'm almost done. If I can just confer with counsel, I'm going to wrap it up. Anything else? All right, we're almost done. So just to recap a couple of days of testimony that got interrupted a lot. This investigation has now extended for a period of over 4 years, right?
Correct.
Okay. And during that 4 years period of time, as recently as less than a month ago, you were still issuing search warrants. Is that right?
Yes.
And there were a total of at least 10 searches by law enforcement of Ms. Richins' home. Is that right?
There were 10 search warrants issued, yeah.
And
or around 10.
You heard that there's also at least 5 multi-day searches by a private investigator. Is that right?
I don't remember if it was 5 days. He said a couple days.
And the agencies that were involved in this case were the Summit County Sheriff, right?
Correct.
The Medical Examiner's Office.
They're not a law enforcement agency.
Well, they have investigator, right? She testified here.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a civilian investigator.
Fair. Also, there was a private investigator that was involved in this case and communicated with you and provided information.
No, he was involved in the civil case.
Did he provide you information?
He provided our office information. I never talked to him personally.
All right. The DEA was involved in this case, at least briefly.
They never took any official action. Well, I should restate that. They assisted us with forensic tools
Okay.
like call detail records and things like that.
Homeland Security agent, or I'm sorry, U.S. Postal Service agent was at one of the searches, right?
Yeah, I was aware of that.
We've heard, I believe that we're over 45 witnesses now in this trial. Is that right?
I haven't been counting.
And in all of that, we have no murder weapon. Like, you haven't found anything that was connected to Eric's death. No fentanyl in the house, correct?
There was a boatload of fentanyl in his stomach that came out of the house with him.
Other than this, what's in his stomach? Did you find anything else that had fentanyl in it?
No.
Okay. You can't say how the fentanyl was administered, right?
Orally.
Besides orally.
That's all I know is that he took it orally.
We don't know exactly when it happened and what time of night or morning.
We know a time range.
Okay. You can't say the dosage that was ingested, right? 1 pill, 2 pill, 20 pills.
Illicit fentanyl does not come in dosages.
Okay. You can't say what was ingested on Valentine's Day at all, correct?
Fentanyl is definitely ingested. Oh, I'm sorry, on Valentine's Day.
Yes, on Valentine's Day.
No, we don't have any kind of medical examiner's report of his stomach contents from that day.
And on insurance fraud, we have not heard any testimony about any representations that Kouri Richins made to her insurance company. Have we?
Objection, Your Honor.
If you put a word to it, foundation.
Well, foundation also probably then hearsay.
Would you approach her, let's say? State's objections are overruled. If you would restate that question, if you can, exactly.
I will. And we've not heard any testimony in this case about statements or representations Kouri made to her insurance company, correct?
Not statements. We've heard evidence about it.
Okay. And with respect to the forgery count, we've not heard any testimony one way or the other whether Eric gave Kouri permission to sign his name on documents, have we?
I don't think that's required to meet the forgery statute.
Have we heard anything about that? Do you know one way or the other whether Eric allowed Kouri to sign his name on documents as a married couple?
No, but that's still signing someone else's name, even if they give you permission, purporting it to be somebody else's signature.
Okay, well, the judge is going to instruct the jury on what the law is about that. But what I'm asking you is, as the investigator, do you have any knowledge one way or the other if Eric ever said to her, hey, it's okay with me, sign my name, I don't have time to deal with it?
I don't know.
And in fact, what we have heard is that he did give her at least one power of attorney at some point years ago, right?
Objection. Well, not objection. May we approach?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll withdraw that question, Your Honor. And you were here when Mr. Throckmorton, the handwriting expert, testified, and you heard him say that he could not say that Kouri Richins was who signed that document. Did you hear him say that?
I heard him say that it was probably
not Eric.
Probably not Eric.
But he could not say that it was signed by Kouri, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I think that's it. I appreciate your patience. Thank you, Detective. Thank you, Your Honor. We tender the witness.
Mr. Bloodworth, within the scope of cross, please.
Detective O'Driscoll, in this case, are you the lead investigator among many investigators?
Yeah, it's a large team. I've had a lot of help.
Does your job in part involve coordinating the activities of all the other sheriff's office investigators?
Yes.
And are you the lead investigator for the sheriff's office as opposed to the county attorney's office?
Correct. I have no authority over what the prosecutor's investigator does.
And does the county's, well, you may have just answered this, but does the county attorney's office have its own investigation capability and authority?
Yes.
Is it your job as lead investigator to be omniscient regarding every investigative detail in this case, to include details of the county attorney's investigation?
No, I can't know every single detail. It's, as defense knows, terabytes of information.
And in early 2023, was your personal investigative focus on determining the source of the fentanyl that caused Eric Richins' death?
Yes, because like I said at the beginning, I came into the investigations division as a narcotics officer. Before I became the lead investigator on this case, that was our focus, is investigating drug-related crimes.
In early 2023, did the sheriff's office have a digital forensics capability even remotely close to the capabilities of Mr. Kochodimos?
No, that's why we hired him.
And in early 2023, did the sheriff's office have any forensic accounting capability whatsoever?
In which year? Which date did you say?
Early 2023.
They had a little. I mean, how early? Not until March and April.
Well, let me ask you this.
January, 0.
And any forensics accounting capability close to that of Brooke Carrington?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say forensic accounting?
Forensic accounting.
I'm sorry. I misheard. I thought you said digital forensics. No, the sheriff's office has no experts in forensic accounting.
And is part of the reason that they have no forensics accounting experts and minimal digital forensics experts because you have a small office, right?
Yeah, it's relatively small.
The county attorney's office become involved in this case in early May of 2023 when me charged Kouri Richins.
Yes, we only met with the prosecutors about a week before to give them our probable cause information.
Subsequent to charging Ms. Richins, did the county attorney's office engage Mr. Kochodimos and Ms. Carrington?
Yes.
And is Mr. Kochodimos the investigator who analyzed the digital forensics, including cell tower mapping and cell phone data?
Yes.
And was it Ms. Carrington that investigated and analyzed the forensic accounting, including the closing on the Midway Mansion?
Yes.
And does the state provide the material from each of their investigations to the defense in discovery?
As far as I know, yes.
Do you recall in cross-examination when defense counsel picked the sentence from a May 2023 interview of Carmen Lauber, where it was either you or Detective Maynard told Carmen Lauber that she was something like the biggest piece of the puzzle?
Yes, I remember that.
What was the context of that comment?
She said something about, can we just lay out all the information, all the pieces in front of us? Because we were trying to establish a timeline. And we told her, you're the biggest piece. You're the biggest part of the information that we don't know. She had the information.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And did that context involve a piece of the drug purchase timeline rather than a piece of this whole giant case?
Correct. The timeline of her involvement, not necessarily the entire case.
And did that interview predate any information on the forensic accounting?
Yes.
And
we didn't even get into that until well after.
And did it predate any of Mr. Kochodimos' investigation?
Yes.
And did it predate your understanding of Kouri Richins' relationship with Josh Grossman?
Yes.
Do you recall whether that empty 2016 hydrocodone bottle that went with Eric Richins' body to the medical examiner's office, was discarded by the medical examiner's office in August of 2022?
Back to hearsay.
Please lay some foundation sustained.
Do you recall what happened with the empty 2016 hydrocodone bottle?
Need my objection.
Detective, is it yes or no? Start there.
Yes.
How do you know what happened with the 2016 empty hydrocodone bottle?
I was told by other investigators that they're
sustained on hearsay.
Did you or Detective Maynard give Carmen Lauber a ride to anywhere other than Wasatch County Drug Court or her attorney's office?
Just here to this building.
To this building.
To meet with prosecutors or talk with her attorney. They're here.
Can investigators force anyone to speak with them if that person does not want to speak with them?
No.
Can investigators seize someone's cell phone without a warrant based upon probable cause?
No, it has to be consent or a warrant.
At any time, have you believed that the walk the dog letter gave you probable cause to seek a warrant to seize Ronald Darden's cell phone?
No, it didn't contain enough information for me to have gotten a warrant.
Did your investigation determine that the EpiPens recovered from the Richins home were for one of the Richins children?
Yes.
The GIF image. The one with Kevin Spacey that says, idiots, idiots everywhere. Is that from the TV show House of Cards?
From my understanding, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is he finished? We have no further questions. Thank you.
May we release this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bloodworth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective O'Driscoll, you are free to go. You are released from any subpoena.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bloodworth.
Your Honor, the state has a stipulation to it.